you, team. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ASMA, short form of Adoption of Social Media in Academia, a leading community in academia, I, Chandan Anand, Vice President of InnoSoft Group, welcome you all in today's important and exciting deliberation at School Education Leadership Forum, featuring IB schools, boarding schools, and some of the finest CBSE schools of the country, supported by our partners FMA Digital as engagement partner and Orai Robotics as AI partner. Let me invite your attention for a minute towards InnoSoft Media Group. We are India's leading digital solution media group, having wide community outreach in growing sectors like academia, healthcare, HR, community of sales, marketeers, and entrepreneurs. I feel extremely proud to brief you about our growing community in academia, ASMA. ASMA has hosted hundreds of webinars till now, many virtual events, every session being very unique and niche in its own way. Thus, passionately delivered many successful series of deliberation. With 8 years of rich legacy, ASMA has grown with an outreach of over 1 lakh community members, connecting academia, corporate, government, comprising of 500 plus private universities, state and open universities, over 200 higher education institutes, B schools, technical and skill education institutions, more than 20,000, 25,000 schools and preschools, edtech companies, and startups. We are continuously serving them via various facets of knowledge sharing platform like ASMA Portal, ASMA TV, ASMA webinars, event, conferences, ASMA awards, MDP programs, FDP programs, and many more. Our mission to accelerate this movement of community outreach, knowledge sharing, and exploring collaboration opportunity, the journey becomes easier with your support and encouragement. Earlier during the onset of pandemic, students finding it way difficult to adopt the online learning and being tech savvy. However, with time, even the toddlers have become to see a friend in technology. Life in post-pandemic world has accelerated the adoption of technology in school education. Educators like you have recognized the benefits and opportunities brought in by technology that goes beyond teaching and learning process. ASMA School Education Leadership Forum has invited eminent speakers who are leaders and experts in school education in India. They are here to enlighten us by sharing some of their best practices and experiences. The theme of today's virtual event is integration of technology in interdisciplinary teaching. We have 3 panels featuring IB schools, boarding schools, and CBSE board schools of the country. The deliberation will explore various ways in which a mix of different technologies is helping educators and students to understand and develop soft skills necessary in future leaders. I feel glad and excited that we are hosting an exclusive event like this. We are creating this knowledge sharing platform and networking platform, which I'm sure will open doors of opportunities and collaborations. And not to repeat again, we all are aware that forum like this, the virtual events like this, is helping us, all our friends, colleagues, to come again and again every day, which departs us and deviates us from what difficult life which we are going through practically. We are thrilled to inform that the webinar got a very good response and participation from across the country. We can still see the participation is approx 200 people as of now. We are glad to have your participation as speakers, listeners, and attendees. We are really, really thankful to all of you contributing your valuable time today. Dear all delegates and attendees, there is an announcement for you. I would like to brief you the format. See, we keep on getting the queries about how to get the attendees e-certificate. Now, let me make this clear again and again. The eligibility criteria for getting your attendee e-certificate is that you join this webinar CD only through the live registration link which you have done for registering this event, not by attending the shared FB or the YouTube link. You have to attend through the live link of the Zoom link. And at the end of the event, we share you the feedback form in the chat box. Please fill the feedback form in the chat box to make you eligible for getting the e-certificate. And yes, please make this event a more dialogue, not a monologue, but keep throwing questions on the chat box so that your relevant questions are being picked by the moderator and the speakers, and we make this event more, more friendly and more engaging so that it will be fruitful for all of us. So let's begin. Thank you so much. May I please invite my colleague Rahul Binoy to kindly introduce our NN speakers of the day. Rahul.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rahul Binoy, and I'm the event head and your host for today, representing ASMA. Let's move on to the much awaited panel discussion of the day. The topic of discussion is imparting soft skills along with the help of concept and knowledge-based technologies to propagate global intelligence. I'd like to warmly welcome the eminent speakers we have in here today with us. Starting from Ms. Anvita Gupta, she is the head of school, Sancta Maria International School, Faridabad. Then we have Dr. Sarvesh Naidu, Executive Vice President, TRINS Institution, Thiruvananthapuram.
Welcome, sir.
Then we have Dr. Jayshree Periwal, Chairperson, Jayshree Periwal Group of Schools, Jaipur.
Welcome, Jayshree, ma'am.
Then we have Dr. Neeta Bali, Director, Principal, and Head of School, GD Goenka World School, Sohna.
Hello, Neeta, ma'am.
And finally, the moderator of this August panel will be Ms. Annabelle Villamarine, Primary School Principal and PIP Coordinator, Lancers International School, Gurgaon. Welcome you, ma'am.
Welcome, madam.
Thank you.
I welcome you all once again. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now leaving the screen to you, Ms. Annabelle, to take up the discussion forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rahul. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Annabelle Villamarine, the primary school principal and PYP coordinator at Lancers International School. And I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the IB Schools panel discussion on imparting soft skills with the help of concept and knowledge-based technologies in propagating global intelligence. Let's start by sharing with you some facts. Families pursue international studies outside of India to prepare them for global markets. This phenomenon has resulted in the formation of worldwide knowledge and the relationships where students from different parts of the world continue to collaborate and engage in global issues. These past few years have seen rapid development in communication, concept, and knowledge-based technologies in education. By fusing technology in learning, soft skills, also known as the 21st century skills by P21, like data literacy, creativity, respectful communication, collaboration, and analytical thinking came at the forefront of our learning cultures. Today, we aim to impart perspectives on the value of developing 21st century skills in our students today. So I'll begin by asking a question for all of our panelists this afternoon. All right, so the first question for everyone is, how can technology help in developing data literacy and analytical thinking? So I'd like to invite Ms. Anvita to start with our discussion.
Thank you, Annabelle. So it's a very interesting topic, and technology is very much a part of data literacy. So when you say how can we integrate it, I wonder how can we not integrate it with technology? If you really think of data analysis and data literacy, it's become so much a part of our lives, whether we talk of schooling or we talk of companies. So it is truly a 21st century skill. Most of the decisions are taken based on data. A lot of us in companies, we collect a lot of data. In schools, we collect data of students, their marks. And oftentimes the question is that we collect this data, but what do we do with it? Do we use this data to promote ourselves, to promote learning in children, and in companies to promote their business or something? A lot of times we start looking at data analysis when the students have moved out of school, but it's time that we start looking at data analysis, and which kind of takes you on to the next logical thing, which is analytical thinking from school itself. So data literacy is a very important part of school. And one of the very interesting things that I read was that data is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with the data. So, I truly believe that technology fastens data analysis, data collection. It's a click away. And why shouldn't we use that? So it is totally integrated. I can't think of doing data analysis without technology.
Awesome. Thank you, Anvita. May we ask Dr. Jayshree to share perspectives. Dr. Jayshree?
Sorry, I didn't unmute. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So COVID-19, it has brought home the tech reality. Teachers have started to innovate and experiment with online tools. The renaissance of digital literacy has begun. The ability to transform information by collecting, analyzing, interpreting all types of data via machine, it provides a great insight, especially when it's just a simple one click of a button. Assessment data is imperative to track students' achievements via standardized test scores. An assessment which has taken place in a class can give an entire analysis to a teacher. Which questions were challenging, which took maximum time to complete, which students struggled with the concepts. This can immediately be collaborated and analyzed. Teaching analytics, which can be used to engage teachers in a meaningful dialogue to improve the quality of teaching. It helps them gain new insights into how students learn and how teachers can teach better in a very critical endeavor. Say, let me give you an example. When a video of energy transformation was shown, the assessment results were higher versus a long lecture on the same subject. A group project on Indus Valley civilization created greater interest than a documentary on the same subject. So interactive whiteboards, document cameras, interactive response systems, softwares to collect classroom instructional data during instructions, it is the future. We have to accept that. Similarly, artificial intelligence, it employs sensor eye tracking tools to capture eye gaze data on the attention span of a student. With this data analytics, teachers will know how involved the student has been, how deeply engaged he or she has been, how has he completely switched off after the first 10 minutes. All this is possible with artificial intelligence cameras, tracking just the eyes and the facial expressions of the students. Devices will intercept the voices of students and let the teachers know about the level of participation of each child. A student A participated and contributed to 35% of their discussions, while a student B was quiet for most of the class. So as commonly said, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. From planning student menus to allocating the number of hours for sports, so much more can be very easily done with data analysis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jayshree. Very insightful. Now may we request Dr. Neeta to share her perspectives.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you, Annabelle, for the question. And it's a very pertinent question, though Anvita and Dr. Jayshree Periwal have very beautifully answered the question. I would still like to add that, perhaps reiterate or repeat that data is now used very, very effectively in education. Data is used for assessment. Data is used beautifully for tracking the performance of the students. As Jayshree ma'am very rightly said, data is used for tracking the performance of the students. Also for figuring out the test scores, the graduation rates and the dropouts. How many students have graduated from one class or moved on from one class to another? How many dropouts? Have we been able to go through or take through at least MLL, the minimum level of learning? Have we been able to very effectively use accelerated teaching to enhance the performance of the students? I think with the help of data analytics, all this becomes that much easier. And if we look at a broader spectrum on a macro scale, this is definitely on a micro scale because we are talking about within the school. I'm talking about the micro level. But if we look at a macro level, I think it is also important to see how various schools in a particular region are faring. Are there resources that they're in need of? You figure out what is it that the schools need to move forward. So I think that on a macro level also, data analytics will be able to tell you exactly where the schools are lacking, what are the resources they need to procure, what is it that they need to replenish in order to move forward. So I think kind of broadly gives you a micro and a macro picture, the use of data analytics.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Neeta. And may I request Dr. Sarvesh to share his thinking?
Certainly. So good afternoon. Good afternoon to all the eminent speaker colleagues and to all the participants. First of all, thank you to the organizers for raising such a wonderful topic for all of us to ponder over. Yes, if I were to break that topic, really, there are 4 keywords. There's data literacy and analytical thinking. Data has been around forever, all right? And so has the thinking of the human mind. We've all been thinkers ever since the brain has come into our skulls. So that's not anything new. I think what is newer now is that technology has encouraged us at a faster rate to go into the literacy aspect of data so that we understand and find meaning in it, and also that we analyze it. It's not just reams and files and books of information, but certain meaning has to come out of it. I can't help but pick on 6 keywords that ASCD, as this organization, has selected for something linked with this. You know, for too long, we've been working just on memorizing, learning by rote, stuffing everything to a head. And the brightest kids in the class, sorry to say, were always the ones with the greatest memory power. And the people who are the most creative really did not feature too well at times because there was no way of reflecting on that. So we have moved from that. And now we have gradually moved into understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating what we're analyzing, and most importantly, creating. We become constructive more and more. So data as a literacy tool is hugely important for us. And it is helping us more and more into realizing that data by itself has very little meaning other than storage space being taken up, but analyzing it is crucial. Now, just to conclude on this aspect, I could say, being a sports person and a great ardent player of cricket myself, that nothing is better than, if you're a fan of cricket and watching cricket matches, the T20 matches. You know, that is data literacy at its best in analytical thinking, because no longer are you watching the visuals and the match. You're not interested so much just in the score, but the pitch map, the feeling, this, that, where the bowler bowls, where the batsman hits. Otherwise, I'm telling you as a cricketer, there's no way these cricketers could be hitting a ball coming at them at 140, 150 kilometers an hour, half a second, and hitting them for sixes as if they were just flies to be swatted. A lot of it has to do with data analysis and enhancing their skills because of that.
Awesome. Thank you for your perspectives. Indeed, technology has become an influential element of our lives and our schools too. And developing data literacy goes hand in hand with analytical thinking. I would like to add that developing data literacy in our students is a requirement too. In addition to teachers and schools using data to inform instruction, our students are also highly motivated to make a difference in the world around them. And so to be better informed in decision making, our schools should also support the development of data literacy in our students. So I'm going to move on to our second question, and this is for Dr. Neeta. And Dr. Neeta, I want to know, what do you think about how schools can leverage technology in boosting creativity?
Great question, and I'm happy to answer it. Everybody knows that now we are at a point where technology is here to stay. I think we are at a point of no return, if I may say so. Of course, everyone is also speaking about the hybrid classrooms. We are all using interactive whiteboards. We are using tablets. We're using laptops. We're using beautiful apps for which are curriculum enhancing tools. All this is resulting in a much greater student engagement, much greater collaboration across the world, and a lot of communication which is happening, global communication. Earlier, when I used to speak to children about global citizenship, it sounded very cliched. Today, it's true. Even this evening, a set of children are collaborating with children from 3 other countries through an agency of which I'm also a part and an advisor of a very senior group of educators. We are putting them together so that they can exchange ideas on depletion of water table. The topic that they have taken is depletion of water tables in Haryana, which is very similar to something which is happening probably in Africa. So you have to give children creativity triggers, and there's so many now. There's so many. Computer screens are no longer pieces of, it's not a screen for, it's not an information machine anymore. It is an artist's canvas. I really think it's an artist's canvas. Video games, earlier we were all very averse to video games, but now I think all students prefer video games to comics. In good old days, we used to preserve our comics, have them, tightly bound. I still have some of them, then pass them on to the next generation. Dr. Naidu is smiling. I'm sure he's also given some of these things as legacy to his children. Children are now writing beautiful blogs where they're talking about their experiences and giving vent to their creative expression, taking responsibility for their learning. There are comic and cartoon strips where students are able to create stories by using some apps. There are visual graphics, and children are using them so well, far better than any of us. Honestly speaking, far better than any of us. We are co-learners. Whenever I'm with the children, I'm perpetually asking them, how do I present this? How do you think we can enhance this video? Infographics. These are things I've learned from children. Infographics, where we are representing data in a very beautiful aesthetic manner, in a very colorful manner, and children are doing all of this. So these are beautiful creativity triggers, digital storytelling, which is so interesting. Gaming. I don't have much knowledge about gaming, but I know that it's almost an obsession with everyone. Coding. So I think technology has taken learning to a completely different level. We still to catch up as adults. People like us have still to catch up. So these are some of the things I've learned from children, so I'm sharing. But I see this whole lot of excitement around these creative triggers. And I also see actualization of their creativity and good utilization of time and expending their energies so beautifully at a time like this, particularly when they are cloistered in their homes. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I'm sure our audience learned so many ideas on how to develop creativity at our schools through technology and inviting the students to apply their learning. And I'm so interested to know more about that collaboration of schools to schools, Dr. Neeta.
You're most welcome. Very soon, we have a meeting in the evening. We'll probably come back to you. The teacher concerned will come back to you in a minute.
Wonderful. We have to elevate our understanding of new technologies and how creativity should be focused upon, especially if we want our students to be lifelong independent learners. We are familiar with the work of Sir Ken Robinson in the most watched TED Talk of all time. Educationalist Sir Ken Robinson claims that schools kill creativity, arguing that we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. But true creativity, he argues, is based on knowledge, which in turn is based on shared literacy, working with our students and applying their learning. So thank you again, Dr. Neeta, for that. Now, may I request Dr. Sarvesh to respond to our next question? My third question is, how can using concept-based technologies in schools, in school education, develop sensitivity towards other cultures and prepare students for the global world?
Thank you. When Dr. Bali was talking about the comics, I can't help other than technology, but I'm talking about the physical comics. I was working in Italy in the 1980s at one of the United World Colleges, and my Italian was zero. And some of the Italian students' English was zero. And I still have at least 3 asterisks in Italian, which worked a dual purpose. I learned Italian and they learned English because we kept translating from a comic book into English. And so they learned English faster than they would have if we had gone through the good old Wren and Martin and things like that. So, you have to keep adapting and adjusting according to what attracts the learners, because the focus is on the learners. And it's the same thing with concept-based technology. Let's just very quickly understand that, the difference between concept and content. The concept-based aspects have always existed, but they started coming into the educational program, especially from the IB front at least, from say about 10 years ago. It started getting structured more and more into the curriculum. But a content is basically, you're just churning out facts, as I said, and very superficial learning. You don't understand it. You just churn it out, and the more you can throw the jargon at people, like the legal language, the more it fascinates people and frightens them, and you accept it because it sounds good, sounds intellectual, but it has very little meaning. Concept-based is a big transfer of ideas. You start small, you convert them into really big thoughts, and you transcend time, you start making sense out of it. And what really happens with the concept then is that you evolve and you get other people to evolve. You see, the topic also talks not just about concept-based technology, but also about developing sensitivity. And that's really so important. And that's with other cultures. And nothing could be better than the world we are living in right now to just zoom in on that aspect and try and understand from that aspect what it means in a global context for the students. So let me give you an example. I was fascinated, I was an avid fan of bird watching and things from my childhood. And I've grown up in Rajasthan, in Ajmer to be more particular. And it used to be full of crows and full of vultures. I mean, you could see them everywhere. And there were such great pickers on the streets. There was a dead animal in the morning, it was gone. There were only bones left, which someone would come and pick it up and recycle it for something else, and it was gone. Right? And then when I came back from Italy much later in the 2000, 2005 phase, I started coming back to India for various things. I found that the vultures had disappeared and there were nothing but dead animals lying around. And it fascinated me and worried me. Why is this happening now, which I didn't see in childhood? And when I researched, I found out about the vultures, and they were disappearing because we were injecting our cattle with a substance called diclofenac, which had been banned in the West and was being imported in India to alleviate the arthritic pain of the cattle. Now, this diclofenac, over a period of 10 to 15 years, has started thinning the eggshells of the vultures who were feeding on the dead animal so much that they couldn't hatch the eggs. They were too fragile. And so the population of the vultures in India, as it happened globally, came down from a whopping amount everywhere into literally, you could count them on the palm of your hand. The people who also struggled with this were the Parsis. I'm bringing the cross-cultural thing into it because the Parsis keep the dead on the Tower of Silence, and it's largely the vultures who come and feed on and they didn't have. And today, the Parsi community or the religious faith of Zoroastrians are resorting to either cremating the dead or burying them because they don't have the carrions feeding on them. Now, the flip side of that, what has happened in the villages is the dead animals are lying there, the stray dogs, which have been so protected, rightly so, I suppose, by our animal lovers, have started feeding on the dead carrion and the dead animals. And they have turned feral, which means they've turned semi-wild, like the wild dogs in the forests. And when they attack a human being, they don't attack, they eat them up. And that is why children are being attacked in the villages. It took us too long and almost to the edge of extinction to realize. But this was through data. This was through technology. This is through learning out of that. So my conclusion at this aspect would be that, the learning through data and technology comes in the form of academics, comes in the form of outdoor learnings. I give you an example of experiential observations. Personal, you must have a connect with it. I went back to my childhood and connected personally with what was and what isn't. Social, the impact of what is happening to society and to various peoples. and also as a form of service. What can you do to give back to society to help people recover and help bounce back? And it has. From the brink of extinction, we started coming back. The vultures are returning. The famous golden eagles and everything in the United States are just about bouncing back on the edge of extinction. So sometimes what we think is a waste of time of using technology is not. And you can really spread this around so vastly into a variety of countries, a variety of cultures, variety of customs, and help people teach. I mean, who would link the disappearance of vultures with the cremating of a Parsi community? No? Now you can show visuals, you can map, you can show on the maps where all the Parsi community lives, where they came from, how they migrated from Persia. You can do a variety of things which earlier was unknown to us. Now you can show visuals of these things, and with the data, you can really drive home the point which earlier were just statistics which you had to memorize. So that's the beauty of what we can do with data and data analysis.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvesh. Humans understand holistically, and we have been applying isolated content knowledge to issues and problems long time ago beyond the subject areas. But you're right, the concepts glue them together, and without understanding what connects the information and topics, we may not be able to really prepare our students for what is out there. Yeah. Thank you once again. So may I now ask Dr. Jayshree this question? Dr. Jayshree, how can students, with the help of technology, focus on developing efficient communication and feedback as per global parameters?
Yeah, you're talking to me about interdisciplinary skills. I didn't hear properly. Just can you repeat the question?
No worries. So how can students, with the help of technology, focus on developing efficient communication and feedback?
Okay. So it's important to have technology become a part of our communication. Now that communication can become interdisciplinary. We can study math and music and communicate that the same. We can study economics and environmental science, coding and chemistry, which seemed probably not possible in our times. If we studied math, we would not be a music student, but now we can do both and communicate all this extremely efficiently. The variety provided in terms of subjects, it has become very individualized. It's become very personal. It's not a cookie cutter model. You know, let me share this example with you. Suppose you went for a long jump practice. Now, how do I communicate this to the world? And how do I relate it to my academic understanding? So you can delve into physics and body mechanics when you're jumping. Using videos playing on loop, students can analyze the movement of the legs and at the same time record their own jumps to understand downward application of force. Then students can exercise their math skill by estimating and measuring how far they jumped. These math numbers can then be grouped into data sets, which can lead to learning statistics. And we can communicate all this through data, through scatter graph, through bar graph, through pie graph. So it's become technology aided. The communication has become enhanced due to technology. Last summer, we had a set of children going for an excursion to another country. So what did the students do first? To understand and communicate to themselves and to their peer groups. So the first students, they explored using the Google Earth. They had actually gone to Italy, Sarvesh, sir. So look at that. Next, they took various e-trips to all the museums and the palaces, to understanding their market and understanding their culture. Then they determined which personal items would they need to take to travel, because the weight was only 30 kgs that they could take along. So using virtual reality and simulations, that help the students with visual dexterity when they will estimate the weight of each item they selected and calculated the total to approach a required amount of weight. This interdisciplinary approach helped them to understand, to communicate with themselves, and that would kind of help every tourist who would be traveling outside. When you're studying, say, the importance of water, they will delve into the river civilization, which flourished from history. They will communicate, understand, collate how to convert seawater to usable water, amount of usable water on Earth, use the mathematical angle to communicate to their teachers. From collecting data about usable water, interviewing a historian, or sitting in Egypt to share thoughts with other classmates on digital platforms. These are all ways to communicate with each other using hypermedia, multimedia, web-based media, and integrating all this through technology. Earlier, the students had perseverance. All that they did was study very hard and memorize, as Dr. Sarvesh just told us, and Dr. Bali too. Then came in the passion. The children started to study with passion. But today, the students want a purpose. They want to communicate to the environment around, to their teachers and to their principals and to the community, that what is the purpose? Why am I studying? So through technology, the classroom community can explore the world outside the school, while they can communicate with other students, correspond with scientists and researchers, collect and interpret real data about real phenomena, share findings. In short, technology can be used to support inquiry in teaching, inquiry in communication, find solutions to real problems by communicating and asking questions, designing and conducting investigations, gathering and analyzing data, making interpretation, drawing conclusions, reporting these findings, and communicating your thoughts to others, finding solutions from all this.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Jayshree. More than ever, our students need to be really communicative of the things that they've learned from school, and through explicit teaching of respectful communication and best way to communicate, it helps us also to connect subject-based skills, like what you've shared a while back. It's the best tool to support our students and communicate what they know, and like what you said, their purpose through different modalities. Thank you so much, Dr. Jayshree. Now, may I ask Anvita the fifth question for today? Anvita, can interdisciplinary skills be fostered effectively with the help of technology in a blended learning environment? How can we make this happen?
Okay, thank you, Annabelle, for that question. It's such an interesting question, very thought-provoking when you hear it. So we have already talked about what interdisciplinary is. I would like to, before I go on to technology and blended learning, I would like to talk a little bit more about it, because that's something I've always said that subjects cannot be done in isolation, should not be done in isolation. So, if they, in history, if you look at history and you say that there was a king who waged a war, won it or lost it, it's not just got to do with dates and numbers, it's got to do with geography, it's got to do with community, it's got to do with so many other things at that time that was happening. So, and that's how our minds work, that's how our minds connect things. We connect to different aspects, we don't think in isolation. So, and the beauty of technology, and also I would say the silver lining in the current situation where we've gone on big time into the blended learning format, is that it has pushed us into a situation, into a space where we have no choice but to work with our students with the blended learning program, which is an online and a bit of physical thing, and get them to think of the various aspects. We have little time with our students right now in the virtual learning space. So we have had to we had to combine a lot of disciplines. We've had to go into a different form of disciplines. Of course, international education, that's very much a part of the way we function. But technology has helped us a lot. And it isn't only in the senior classes where you study history or you study biology or you study physics, but even for the little ones, you know, when you look at the primary school children, when you look at, let's say, something like storytelling with them, you can do a lot of math with it, you can do a lot of culture with it, you can teach them colors with it, you can do art, you can do music with it. You know, they can create this story on a video, and they can put music in it, they design with it. We've been thrown into this big time technology space, but I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it should go away. We should continue to work with technology in every aspect of our educational system. Also, something which is extremely beautiful about technology is that you can do a lot of differentiation with it. Dr. Naidu was speaking a while ago about the students who got brilliant marks and were the good students. You know, it was said he's a or she's a good student. And then there were some students who were at that time called the poor students. So they were the ones who didn't perform so well. But what with technology now, we can more and more treat every child as with a unique potential. We can say that you're not good, you know, you may not be so brilliant at one thing, but there's another thing that kind of emerges for that child where the child is really brilliant. It also gives the opportunity for children to work at their own pace. You can go as high as you want, you can be at your comfort level, the teachers can stretch you, they can challenge you. Another very important part of technology is that it is I would say it's in the DNA of all children today. You know, they think technology, they work technology, and the kind of lives that they have are much more fast paced than we do. I do not think that the books are going to keep them so occupied and engaged as it did many years ago. So technology offers you videos, it offers you music, sound, and a faster pace of learning, which is what our children are used to. So technology till before, I would say, COVID, for a lot of schools, technology was using the smart board, using a video, showing a PPT. And now with this last 1.5 years, we have moved into technology. All schools have done great amount of training sessions for the students. Yes, it started with the teacher load increasing, but now with their comfort level increasing in it and them working with the students, they have, I think we're kind of in a better space where technology is concerned. I would really say that, you know, I hope this whole thing comes to an end really quickly and the students come to school. It's terrible to hear that for 15 months, students don't come to school, but blended learning and technology should continue to be used because that is the way children's minds work in today's time. And it gives them the opportunity to work at their level.
Awesome. That is the new normal. Thank you so much, Anvita. Our teachers were all challenged when we needed to go total online last year. Many had to go through a crash course on blended learning. And I am delighted to know that students, parents, and teachers complemented each other throughout that journey. So we all have different experiences throughout that. And it was like a hand in glove experience and everything fell into place eventually. Awesome. So my final question is for everyone, and that is, what is your advice to the teachers or parents as they go through a tumultuous moment in our lives? And how can we continue to pursue the development of our 21st century skills in our schools? So maybe I should start with Dr. Sarvesh for this one.
Good, thank you. For a change, the gent has come before the ladies, so thank you very much for that. You know, before I go on to just a little bit of advice, which I put down into 4 phrases, it's really important for us to know the ways of knowing. This is not my concept. I picked it up from a lot of reading and things. But basically, the 4 ways of knowing On one side, you have the five senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, etc., etc. We all know about the five senses, which we rely on for just about every aspect of our living. On the other side of the spectrum is the sixth sense, the gut feeling. What you feel literally in your gut. Happens during exams and intuition. Sometimes you just do, as in leadership, you take a decision not because it makes sense, but purely because of the gut feeling and things. And this is how we form our perceptions and things. On the cross segment of that is the mind, the thinking, the evaluating, the constantly analyzing mind, which is constantly working on our judgment. And on the other side of the mind is the heart, which is again bringing that human touch, that human element, the cross-cultural, relating to different age groups, different people. Everything comes into the heart, not into the mind. The mind is more pragmatic and getting on with it. And basically, the way we know what is through a judgment of the five senses, the sixth sense on the judgment, on the perception, and the judgment of the mind and the heart. And that is really what takes us into this whole aspect of adapting. Now, how does technology help us do that is for the individual to figure out. But really, just to go back to a good old poem from Wordsworth, you remember, I wandered lonely as a cloud and everything, and the host of daffodils and things like that. And when you look at it, I think every aspect or way of knowing is there in the poem if you want to analyze it. And Wordsworth wrote that in the 1800s when there was no technology. But he was able to conceptualize. Now technology shows it to us, makes us hear it, makes us smell it. We are literally 2 years away from pressing a button on the laptop. And if you want to smell what roasted jeera smells like, as opposed to normal jeera, we'll be able to press on the button and it'll come straight into our nostrils and excite us about that. That's really what technology is going to do to you. We're going to be wearing spectacles, which is going to give you the entire laptop screen. So all this invigilation in exams, monitoring, online monitoring, and all is going to be thrown out of the window because it's going to have no sense in it. All right, because technology is going to throw it at us whether we like it or not. So here are my 4 phrases to conclude. First of all, for the 21st century skills, you have to accept that you have to become tech savvy. And oldies like me, who have only started embracing technology, find it a bigger challenge. Maybe some of you do not find it so challenging, but the kids do it with their eyes shut. All right, they just do it with their eyes shut. The next thing is, let's adapt to faster changes. Changes will be there. They've always been in life, but they're going to be very rapid now. And we must adapt ourselves to it, not resist it. Okay, and technology is one of the biggest ones of that. The third thing is, learn to handle the unknown, because it is not the known we are stepping into, but the unknown. 2020 was the world year of the unknown. And we all stepped into it with great apprehensions. Last year, this time, we were just trying to figure out how to handle Zoom and Zoom conferences. Now, we don't even need to worry about it. It just comes so naturally to us. We adapted. But it's not just about adapting the unknown, it's also embracing it. We must be open to embrace it. And not just take it grudgingly because it's there, but realize that that is the future. Pretty much like getting off the horseback and getting into the locomotive was a huge transformation. Putting on the electric switch from an oil lamp was a huge transformation in our lives. And so is this. It's as life defining. And the last one is, please always remember that it is a skill everyone has to develop for cross-cultural, connecting different age groups, the mind and the heart. If you don't keep your mind and heart intact, and for every aspect of life, use that. So don't rely on technology just because it convinces you because you see it and it's technology. Apply your heart as much as your mind to judge and decide for yourself what is right, what is wrong, what is correct, what's not. That's really what I would advise the parents and the teachers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarvesh. May I request Dr. Neeta to share her thinking?
Yes, pretty much as what Dr. Sarvesh has said. I think I also want to reiterate what he has said. One should not be obsessed with technology. Technology is definitely going to bombard and make inroads into every part of your life. We have to move fast to keep pace with the changing technologies, because the technology today is likely to become obsolete tomorrow. So it is very important to move fast. That there is absolutely no denying. But definitely we can't be obsessed with technology. And there's so much exposure to technology in the last 15 months where children have been cloistered in their homes. Let me tell you that there are a lot of students who are suffering from severe anxiety, absolutely severe anxiety, because they're not meeting their peers, they're not meeting their teachers. So it's hosted. In fact, it's created a whole host of other psychological issues. So I think we need, this is like tightrope walking. We really need to watch where we're going. We need to balance the usage of technology with human connect. So definitely we have to revive human connect, because that's absolutely essential. And third, I think when Dr. Naidu said we are edging now with this pandemic, we really don't know what awaits us next. So we need to be prepared for a change. We need to adapt. We need to be prepared for the unknown. So I really think we need to build resilience in our children, tenacity in our children, emotional maturity in our children, and most of all, adaptability. Because if we don't have that, I think the children, the younger generation particularly, will start to buckle. So I think these qualities are absolutely essential. The other day, I had a seminar with one of the life coaches, and she spoke so effectively about these skills. We are talking about 21st century skills. I think these are more 21st century skills now than simply communication and collaboration. Because if you don't have resilience and you don't have tenacity and you don't have perseverance, you are bound to buckle and crash. So I think this is what pandemic has taught us. That's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neeta. I'm sure parents and teachers are slowly looking and reflecting at how resilient their students are and themselves, how they are, and develop better programs to improve on it. So now may I call on Dr. Jayshree for this, for her perspective.
Thank you. So I would appreciate children if they are taught by parents as well as teachers, learning to become curious, learning to take action, learning to live together in harmony, learning to be unique, learning to become lifelong learners. These are essential for every student. They've become smarter than us where technology is concerned, but they must be made aware of cyber safety. You know, it's so important to understand cyber safety and security, how children can get abused online, how cyberbullying could impact their social life, how careful they need to be in a digital classroom, be mature and not share objectionable material which can land them in grave trouble. Do not share your password with anyone, not even your best friends, as they may get misused. Keep your gaming, your social accounts secure. Cyber criminals are all around. They would readily take over your Facebook page, infect your smartphone with a virus, steal your academic account, teach kids about privacy settings. It is especially critical for parents to educate and equip the children with these skills which are required to practice good judgment when interacting with the cyber world. Parents must be in constant dialogues. For teachers, it is very, very important to touch upon topics of anxiety, jealousy, anger management. Do assemblies on, say, gratitude. Understand where you are being compassionate and showing your thankfulness to people around. Have a buddy mentor to ensure that there is no loneliness for a kid. It's a cyber tech world today. Classes should be broken down into smaller groups for deeper conversations. Have morning clubs where children can share their experiences. Resilience, as Dr. Bali said, I want to reiterate, is the need of the hour. So let your homes be democratic. Let your dining table conversations revolve around challenges you may face. Do not make them live in an unreal, beautiful world. Life is not fair. It has never been fair. Make them understand that. Let them become responsible for the decisions that they take. Teachers have to have personalized solving authentic problems, personally meaningful and challenging problems that children come across. They can confide to, they can find answers. Let students determine how to demonstrate new knowledge and skills. They must have a choice. They can present their learning in whichever form they want to, be it a PPT, be it an artwork, be it a Lego model, be it a rap song, be it a comic strip, or even say a group drama. They have to learn how to do collaboration. This world is a playfield and resources from all over are available. Our grade 11 students had a talk with a nuclear scientist from Stanford University. Grade 5 students did an online project on ecosystem with children in Vietnam. Scaffolding is important. Feedback is important. They should have a criteria that has already shared with students. So they must understand what were their strengths and what were their weaknesses. The students must have a choice and voice in their learning. When they are made active stakeholders, they drive learning and they drive inquiry. This is my personal experience. And to conclude, ongoing opportunities to reflect and self-evaluate on the learning process. It is about questioning critically in a positive way what you do and why do you do it, and then deciding whether there is any other better way, a more efficient way of doing it. Find this. The future is unknown. Be resilient to adapt and adopt the new challenges.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jayshree. My takeaway for that is accountability. Every single member of our school community is accountable for something, and we need to recognize that we have a powerful voice to share. So now may I call on Anvita for her perspective?
Yes, thank you, Annabelle. So, so much has been said already on this and I agree with everybody's point of view. For me, the takeaway from that is definitely that we need to create a balance of the heart and of the mind, balance of, what is the time that the students have off technology and on technology. So maintaining that balance and everything that's been said about cyber safety and resilience, which is so important, the heart and the mind. I would just like to take this a little forward with all that. I mean, that's already been said, so I don't need to repeat all of that. Is that for the teachers, a whole lot of times that while maintaining this balance that we are talking about, a whole lot of times we let our own fears come in the way of our, of working with the students. So I am aware that, our fear of technology is become so large that we decide not to do a couple of things because technology, and that's the hard fact, because it's involved and we are not sure of it. But what I would want to say to everybody is that it isn't so scary. None of us are, natives of technology, but you can learn it because for me, not to do something because of our own fear that will be very good for the student in a limited way, in a safe manner, is something that I think we do need to take on. So we should learn to balance between technology and use technology in an appropriate way to make sure that there is meaningful use of technology, the students are engaged, there is an outcome that comes out of it, and it's not just being used to tick the box, because if that's it, then it doesn't serve any purpose. It just gives them more screen time. So balancing all that, and yes, of course, when the students come back to school, they will need a lot of love, compassion, care. The human touch is missing. Technology also makes you very lonely because you're constantly talking to the screen. So I think each one of us, when we go back to, especially the students, when they go back to people, they need a lot of time to play, to, just be with each other, enjoy the social interactions, see each other, ideate with each other. So keeping all that in mind, but I do still say that let's keep the good that has come out of, we've learned through this process. And let's create a new, very robust and engaging system for our students where they do their best and they challenge themselves.
Thank you so much, Anvita. Spot on. It's all about our community coming together. And you're right, whatever we do online, we will not be able to replicate that social connection that we had once at school. So our schools are required to reflect on better ways to support every single member of our school community. Our students are the future, and we need to support their success as much as we can. So there's a lot of ideas already shared with everyone. And of course, I would like to thank all of my colleagues, distinguished panelists today, Ms. Anvita, Dr. Jayshree, Dr. Neeta, and Dr. Sarvesh, for sharing a vibrant discussion on imparting 21st century skills to our students. I'm sure our audience, our teachers can take away so much to enhance their teaching and learning environment. So I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. I'd like to call on Rahul to move on to the next part of our program today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to take a few questions from the Q&A chat?
Yes?
Yeah,
Yes,
before the formal conclusion.
continue, please. Yes.
Okay, so let me, read the questions for you. Maybe if anybody would like to take. There is a question been asked from Dr. Mohammad Khurshid Akhtar. What he's asking, what are the challenges and opportunities of integration of technology in interdisciplinary teaching? This is exactly the session which we are talking on. Are awareness of technologies drive necessary in teaching and learning before adopting it any educational institutes? Are all educational stakeholders should reskilled or upskilled for the same? Another question what he asked, his naming is at a burning question. Shall we start doing integration of technologies without approval or involvement or concern of educational stakeholders if they are not aware of importance of emerging technologies and its impact on interdisciplinary teaching?
So you've got 2 or 3 questions in there. So the first one is on the awareness of technology. May I request members of the panel would like to answer that question?
Can you repeat that question, Annabelle?
So our awareness of technologies drive necessary in teaching and learning before adopting it in any educational institution.
Right. I think that's a very relevant question. A thorough information, a thorough knowledge of the technology that you're going to use, research into the technology is very, very necessary before we start to use the technology in our teaching learning. Please do remember, as educators, we have a responsibility towards the young ones who have, parents have reposed faith in us, and definitely we have a responsibility towards both the children and the parents. So before we delve into a technology, a thorough research into the technology, the usage of technology, the optimum usage of the technology, and any fallout, adverse impacts, what are the firewalls, so to say, so that the children are protected. I think all that has to be taken into account, and I think then we should be able to use it very, very effectively in our teaching learning.
Yes, I agree with you. And we should know what we're talking about. Of course, we'll have to upskill ourselves. Like what Dr. Naidu mentioned a while back, we have to learn how to face uncertainty. And if this is something that we don't know about, we should upskill and learn with the kids. How about this question?
I just wanted to
go
add
ahead.
10 seconds that what we used to call rumor and gossip in the past in good old-fashioned English language is now called fake news. And that is the biggest thing about technology, that we can't just accept it because we see it on the screen. We must again go back to the heart and the mind and the ways of knowing and really understand before we pass it on to the children, before we make it official and legal.
Awesome. So we have a second question. Shall we start doing integration of technology without approval or involvement of concerned institutional stakeholders?
See, let me give you my take. Technology is ever evolving. Every week you'll find some enhancement in technology. So your stakeholders should trust you, should have faith in you, because it's so quick that the moment we start collating everybody's consent, we'll have wasted so many days and hours. Yet, every stakeholder should be given information. If not a consent, at least everybody should be kept in the loop. And they should have that trust, the fact that they put their children with you under your tutelage. I'm sure parents and teachers are constantly learning and growing as the educator himself or herself.
All right, thank you. Here's another question. How do you assure students' intellectual honesty in the online learning environment? Are there monitoring schemes or frameworks that you can recommend for us?
I think it's constant counseling. It's instilling good values, making them understand one exam is not the only success of your life. So once you drive home this concept, then children by and large like to sign an honor code. And I've had children in my school say that we don't want any invigilator in our final exams. And we promise we're not even going to look around, leave aside talk. So it's a constant effort, and we may not always be successful, but in the right direction, if a teacher and a school philosophy moves, one day we will be successful.
Yes, it's a cultural thing, right? And we have to start young. Even the early years kids can also learn about academic honesty. Why not? So we have another question. Are schools effectively using data and technology to assess students on psychometric parameters?
For sure. For sure.
For sure. Dr. Neeta, you want to share something? Right.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, almost every school is now turning to the use of data and data analytics to figure out just about everything. Like I did say initially when I started speaking, to try and gauge student achievement, to try and gauge the graduation rates, the fallout rates, also the emotional and psychological well-being of the students, the degree of student engagement, you name it, and everywhere I think data analytics are being used. So that's a done deal. I don't think any school, for that matter now, any school worth speaking of, which has the wherewithal to be able to use data analytics, is using data analytics in just about every field.
We have a final question, and it says, Dr. Neeta, what is the extent of involvement of the community in the CoLab project? Are they part of the CoLab projects?
Fantastic, and that's a question I'm very happy to answer. As a world school, and all of us are associated with the IB schools, we have this fabulous program called the core component of IB called CAS. And nothing can get better than that. CAS gives so many opportunities to the children. And most of the pandemic, what came as an eye-opener to me was that not merely did the CAS coordinator initiate projects, it was the children who initiated a lot of projects. And these projects are all connected to the communities around them. And most projects, in fact, were as I said, were an eye-opener. When the pandemic just started, you know, children stitching the masks, distributing the masks, collecting sanitizers, collecting food items, trying to donate as much as they could wherever they were, because we had children here, we have children all across the world. Wherever the children were, we found that they wanted to contribute more and more to the community, and they connected so beautifully and off their own, and they continue to share their stories with us. And that was so heartening. So that is inherent, I think, particularly in an international curriculum, it is inherent, and not just in the international curriculum. In fact, today I was talking to a colleague of mine whose son studies in an ISC school here in Gurgaon, who also initiated, you know, some kind of an activity where he taught some skills to younger children, charged them some money, used that money to buy food for what was it? She sent it to me just a while ago. This was, in fact, I complimented her on, this was, yeah, this is something called Rasoi on Wheels. So Rasoi on Wheels is donating food to those who need during this time of pandemic. I am just so impressed. And this is all of 12 years. This boy is all of 12 years. So he and his friends taught coding to younger students because they are very skilled at it. And for that, they charged a minimal amount, and the parents came forward, gave that money for whatever 6, 7, 8 classes. The money was collected and used to do this. So I think all across, most young people are exhibiting exemplary sensitivity.
Can I just quickly add, we had 30 of our students, the student council, just last week, they did crowdfunding and collected a whooping 40 lakhs.
Amazing.
And they bought oxygen concentrators and they gave it to the government to give it to the villages, not to the metro hospitals, but take these oxygen concentrators to the villages. And because there was lack of oxygen and they were so sensitive towards them, my heart went out. God bless mankind and God bless children.
Yes,
Wow, awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Wow.
everyone.
Looking at our current environment, Rahul, we cannot continue with how we were 1.5 years ago. We're now faced with uncertainty, and using data through the help of technology is the new normal. It has proven personalized learning, has improved our students more than we can imagine, even our parents and our teachers too. Our students are more able to lead, manipulate information, connect conceptually, show resilience, become more accountable, and of course, take positive action to improve our community. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was a phenomenal deliberation, and hope you two all had a wonderful time as well. Thank you so much once again. Thank you. Please stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful connecting with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
So moving on to the next panel discussion of the day, the topic of discussion is marketing and technology education, fostering entrepreneurial innovation in students. I'd like to invite the eminent speakers we have in here
let's
today.
Let's have the video, Rahul.
Oh,
let's have the video to run, then we can.
Thank you so much, backing team. So the topic of discussion, again, as I said earlier, is marketing and technology education, fostering entrepreneurial innovation in students. I'd like to invite the eminent speakers we have in here today with us, starting from Mr. Sanjay Srivastav, Principal, Birla Pilani School. Welcome you, sir.
Welcome, Sanjay.
And then we have Ms. Nishi Mishra, Principal, Sindhya Kanya Vidyalaya. Welcome you, ma'am. Then we have Mr. Stan Bali, Principal, the Hyderabad Public School. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, Nishi.
And then we have Ms. Madhur Gupta. And then we have Ms. Madhur Gupta, Principal, CBSE Genesis Global School. Welcome you, ma'am. And then we have Lieutenant General Surendra Kulkarni, Director, Mayo College, Ajmer. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The moderator of this August panel will be Dr. Vidukesh Vimal, Headmaster, the Assam Valley School. I welcome you all once again. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Over to you, Vidukesh, sir. You may take up the discussion forward now.
Welcome.
Thank you, Rahul. In fact, it's an honor to moderate this session, especially with Kulkarni sir around and Nishi, and obviously dear friend Skand, and then Madhu ma'am and Sanjay sir. I'm pretty sure and confident that the audience and the viewer are going to have some very interesting observations and some very interesting information, and which can be a kind of life-changing, or maybe some learning curves may happen with this objective, and I think we all are seasoned educators here. If straight away, if we take this matter and kind of set the first, say kind of format of this whole thing. So I'm going to ask you certain questions, and I guess those questions we all can, try to answer, because rather than talking in a hypothetical situation, it's a great, and especially this is an opportunity that where we have say principals from very seasoned schools and schools like more than 100 years plus old schools. I guess this will be an opportunity for our audience to understand what are the best practices they are following, and because there are some of the things which we are talking today, they're already doing it for last n number of years. So that won't be, and at the same time, also kind of share some of the things which new schools are doing, and and kind of learn from each other. So let me begin by asking you, because this is before we go to the entrepreneurship and talk about that. Let's a little bit talk about the parents and the mindset of the parent and the education background in our country. If you look at our educational background, more or less, when it was set up, obviously except the Royal Colleges, the two Royal College principals are sitting here, the Jagirdar College and the Mayo College people. But if you look at the Royal Colleges, except that, the majority of schools were in a way producing or being the feeder to the service sector. But now in today's 21st century, parents, if I may ask you that, what kind of parental aspirations you guys are seeing, that, where are you still looking for, or the parents are coming to you and talking about that service sector, that, okay, my son or daughter should do this and straight away go to service sector, or the parental aspirations has changed? Because that is the key point from where we can talk about entrepreneurship, and we can talk about what kind of things we are doing it at present. So may I request, I think, let's choose between the two senior most people. I think I'll go with Ma'am Nishi, if you can start, and then we'll go to Kulkarni sir.
Right, thank you, Vidukesh. And I'm very happy to be here with all the esteemed panelists, and thank you, ASMA. So I quite agree with what Vidukesh has said, that it's not only about entrepreneurship, because that would be keeping it as a very standalone kind of an issue. But if you have to look holistically at it, the very reason why education is there in the first place has changed from the times when it was meant to churn out people who would take care of the services in the country. There are formidable challenges that have come up since the IT revolution, and they have been compounded by the pandemic. Now the demand of the next generation is that they have to be capable leaders. They have to have very expansive world views and life views. They have to have critical thinking. They must have the competency to collaborate, to solve problems, and most importantly, to create change. So the very goal of education is to create change, to make a difference. And that can be done by doing different things and doing them differently. And most importantly, to make a positive difference to the world. Unfortunately, our teaching and our education keeps this as the last priority, and sometimes even as a chance byproduct of the education that we are churning out. We are teaching to the test. Our curriculum is tailored to crack the exam. And at the most, it is tailored to get our students to get a job. So none of these really can make a difference. And for that, there are only two ways in which it can be done. One is through research, and the other is enterprise. And both of these, sadly, are very neglected today. So that, I think, is something which has missed the attention of parents, of schools, and of policymakers. That is, the goal of education being to make a difference and to prioritize enterprise as well as research. So that, I think, for a start, is what I feel, Vidukesh.
Thank you, ma'am. Kulkarni sir, if you can just talk about the parental aspirations, what kind of parents at present joining your school, and kind of what is their aspiration at the end of the finished product, like a Mio Boy product, what kind of aspiration they are carrying? Are they carrying that they are going to kind of be in the service sector, or they are going to have this entrepreneurship and that kind of stuff? How things are?
Firstly, thank you, Nishin, for your opening remarks. I think I'll let my bio go past because it doesn't compare as much as any of you out here. So the faster they hide my bio, the better it is. But what I want to say is that parent aspirations have changed fast, but students' aspirations have changed faster. There was a sense of insecurity amongst parents about 50, 60 years ago. And therefore, getting a safe and secure job, which gave you a lifetime career, which gave you a government service where you had an assured job till you retired, was some of the things that drove aspirations of parents about 50 years ago, let's say, or more when I was in school. Today, to a large extent, that sense of insecurity is not there, number one. Number two, seeing the government sector as a source of endless employment has now been fast forgotten. And therefore, whereas certain parents may still have a sense of insecurity, students don't have that sense of insecurity. And they feel they have it in them to go and change the world. They are willing to take chances with what they do. And as trends are showing very clearly, very few of them will actually land up doing the same career for their whole lifetime. I think even kids are getting aware of this. And therefore, what they are realizing is that if they can adapt themselves, upgrade their skills, modify areas of interest as things change, automatically their future lies there. The future does not lie in a sense of security. Now, I will give you a very small example about risk. Unfortunately, this is a misunderstood phrase. I will tell you, I was in the army for 40 years. It's a highly risky business. But there is no risk involved. Once I got commissioned, I know till I retire, I'll be in the army or till I die or something. Right? It was not, I could be risk averse, though I was in a risky business. Today, the kids cannot survive if they are risk averse, because the world will change past them and they'll become irrelevant. And therefore, I think irrespective of which curriculum, which government, what educational system we follow, we need to teach risk-taking as a fundamental system in school. And what many of us, all of us are running boarding schools here in some form. We all are doing it. We are providing an atmosphere of controlled adversity to our students. After all, they're living in an environment far away from home. That itself is a risk parents have taken. So I think there is a clear shift. There is a very small minority of parents who are still seeking a sense of security for their children when they leave school.
Thank you, sir. And let me know from two boarding schools and two different types of boarding schools, from all boys and all girls. Let me go to Skand and let's try to understand from a city perspective, where he's leading a school in Hyderabad, in the heart of the Hyderabad, and what kind of parental aspirations he's kind of finding to deal with on a daily basis.
Well, thank you, Vidukesh, and it's a pleasure to share the talk with such prominent and known and well-respected people, and I'm in all of them throughout. I couldn't agree more with Nishi ma'am and General Kulkarni. See, there is a mix here. The aspirations are increasing, and in some cases it is misconstrued as well. Like the part where I come from, there is still an aspiration of many parents to see that their children crack some competitive exam, go to Silicon Valley, do some software job, and maybe run a company. But at the same time, there are quite a lot of parents and quite a lot of students who feel that the sky is the limit for them, and they are looking beyond. I've had interaction with a lot of parents who know that necessarily may not be, like sciences may not be necessarily the future. And a lot of them come to me and say that we would like our daughter or our son to do liberal arts because there is the future belongs to liberal arts. So I have had some of the toppers of my school joining the humanities stream, which is extremely delighting. I mean, heartening to see, because the generation where I come from, when I took humanities, it came as a shock to my parents because, if you're brilliant, you take non-medical. If you're not so brilliant, you take science. If you're good, you take commerce, and if you're good for nothing, you take humanities. So when I took humanities, it came as a shock wave for everybody. That trend is changing now, which is extremely heartening to see. And the opportunities are also immense with education. I think Nishi ma'am correctly said critical thinking is something which needs to be looked at very, very carefully in the educational system today. I think entrepreneurship is not necessarily related to only industry. It means that you think out of the box. You try to find out solutions. And the dialogue between the parents and us as educators, the contrast has been a lot different than what I saw when I was a teacher when I started my career than where I am now. So I think it's changing for good, but not necessarily entire spectrum is changing. There are few who still have that traditional mind that no, they have to write the competitive exam and then take a certain route.
Thank you, Sant. And I think you rightly pointed out that out-of-box thinking is basically the first step towards entrepreneurship. And let me now from South India straight away, let me go to the Noida, the heart, the state capital in the NCR region, and to Madhur ma'am, and let's understand what kind of parental aspirations she is kind of, encountering on a daily basis. Madhur ma'am, over to you.
Good afternoon. First of all, good afternoon to all the eminent speakers who are there. And thank you, ASMA, for giving this platform. And it is really a pleasure to hear and discuss with such experienced educationists what we get to learn and experience and share our whatever the new ideas and concerns are with different perspectives. Now, if we come to Noida and when we see the NCR, here it's a mixed bag. We have some parents who come with an aspiration that their child or their ward should be able to crack IIT or medicine and should go for the competitive exams. And we also have parents who are looking for entrepreneurship because majority, or what I will say in Genesis, or many of the parents who are there in my school, I say there are a lot of business community which is there. So they are looking into entrepreneurship. So that is gaining popularity, picking up, what I can say is, which is picking up amongst the young generation. Now, it could be due to many reasons. It could be due to there is a lot of awareness due to this technology, social media. And what we see, if we see the young generation, they see the glamorous side of these successful entrepreneurs, but they forget to see the journey, the challenges, what they have faced. And easy access to capital, and we have these corporate accelerators who are there to encourage these young people. So these are some reasons which I see that it is gaining a lot of popularity among the young generation. And parents are also, because some of them, they have their set business, so they want that their child to grow up and become a successful entrepreneur. So they are looking for those kind of skill sets, which we call it as a formal training or a formal entrepreneurship, which could be there. Till now, we had the initial, what we say is more of an informal one. So that structured entrepreneurship they are looking forward to.
Thank you very much, ma'am. In fact, if you look at schools and how you can differentiate between a good school or a great school and say below average or average school, I think one of the very interesting part is how they take their outside classroom programs. And I know obviously you teach your syllabus, you teach your content, but beyond content, what the school is doing. And I think that exactly is the difference and say point where you can judge that what kind of a school your child is studying. And maybe as a parent, it may be of say great help to make a choice what kind of school you can say. And that's why let's move on from the aspiration part to understand what are the practices, what are the opportunities available in a school outside classroom, where kind of a child can practice these skills, learn these skills of entrepreneurship and move on. So may I request Sanjay sir that if you can talk about some of the societies, facilities, and the practices you are following in your school, which may just put a light on this kind of abilities and say skills required for the students and how they are learning.
Skills. Good afternoon, everybody present here. I'm honored to be here in this gathering where eminent speakers are speaking and sharing their views. As far as today's child is concerned, today's student is concerned, there are certain skills. Speakers have already spoken about. Problem solving is the one which the student should concentrate on, learn. Creativity, analytical thinking, collaboration, communication, ethics, and more important is the accountability to be taken by these students. Scenario is changing. Parents' outlook is also changing. Today, the children are more interested to learn with the technology in the classroom. You will all understand preparing a child for the word that does not yet exist. Word is changing every day. The word is changing every day. It's not an easy task to train. No pupil in the history of education is like today modern learner. This is a complex, energetic, and tech-savvy individual. This set of learners want to be challenged and inspired. So as far as these skills you're talking about, which are to be, learned by these children, they are smart enough and they are getting into it. And in the school also, we try and get these skills. We have got teachers who are ready to train these children in different skills. We have trained counselors in the school. This is the word, this is how these children can be trained and can be made ready for the today's word. That is what is my submission. And more so, children are now more focused on to what do they want to do.
Thank you very much. Let me just move to Nishi ma'am on the same question. Like, what are the opportunities available in your school, ma'am, where children is getting the opportunity to kind of learn and practice these entrepreneurship skills?
So Vidikesh, like I was telling you about entrepreneurship and my personal belief that that is the way to go. I will share my experience with one of the best practices that I have, but for that I just want to spend a little time looking at the goal of entrepreneurship. We all know that the goal of enterprise is to make a profit. Fair enough. But if we look a little deeper, we find that profit cannot be made unless there is benefit for all. So unfortunately, out of the traditional factors of production, land, labor, capital, and organization, it is labor which is the only negotiable one and which is pressurized the most. And it is this short-sighted thinking that has led us to many a downfall. And if you look at the past Great Depression, if you look at the current pandemic, the human element of the economy is suffering the most. So the worldwide job losses have to be addressed, and the entrepreneurship that then emerges has to be about good for all, benefit for all, or benefit for a large number for the enterprise to be successful. We do hear of CSR, but that is only about ticking the boxes. It is only about license and compliance. The model of teaching entrepreneurship, especially in a school, has to break away from that, and it has to be about making something which is beneficial for everyone. So in my school, we started, as all the panelists know, that we started the project Sankalp, which ultimately turned out to have benefits in improving standards of women's hygiene because we were producing sanitary napkins for women. It helped us with gender sensitization. It gave a boost to Indian industries. The manufacturing of the machine, the fabrication of the machine is done by Indian industries. It, of course, provides jobs in an entrepreneurial venture, and then it was community service. So we were looking for a project to do in our school for service, and we were wondering what it should be, what the project should be about. So we sent our students out into the city to look for meaningful projects that the girls can find themselves engaged in and find something resonating with that. And after they returned, they came back and discussed that a large population of our city lives in slums, and there is no basic access to clean water, to food. The hygiene and cleanliness of these areas is greatly impacted. And women's hygiene is at the lowest priority. Even awareness about hygiene products like sanitary napkins was absent. So they were resorting to very unhygienic alternatives ranging from rags and leaves and sand. So we applied ourselves to finding a way to supplying sanitary napkins for underprivileged women of our city. Then we conducted a lot of brainstorming and research, and we came upon the indigenous machine designed by Mr. Muruganantham of the Jayshree Industries, who of course now is known as the Padman, but those days he was not. I'm talking of 2012. The raw materials being used were banana fiber, gel, cotton, and these were biodegradable. So that was something which excited us a lot. The cost of the sanitary napkin was very, very low, and it could be done with minimal training of our students. So I traveled to Coimbatore and I inspected the machine and I was convinced of the efficacy, and so we got the ball rolling. Then came the issue of funds, how to fund that machine. You see, this was supposed to be an experiential project, not something where we just put it into our budget and buy the machine and let the children start working on it. There had to be a buy-in of the students. So we set about raising funds from fun fairs, from house sales, from contributions of the alumni, and most importantly, the Friends of Round Square, an international organization of which the school is a member. So we targeted the distribution of napkins to 250 women of the village of Jarga on the outskirts of Gwalior. And we created batches of students who would be able to teach them about how to use the napkin, how to dispose of the napkin. And finally, we bought the machine and put it in place. Since the time we bought the machine in our school till today, not only have we diversified into another set of machines which we found were of a better quality and being manufactured very close to Gwalior in the infamous Bhind area. Bhind, as you know, is always correlated with Phulan Devi and the sorts. But over there, I found another machine being manufactured, which was giving us a better quality of product. This one was with wings and it could be folded into 3. And I started getting a lot of orders from hospitals and NGOs and missions because of the unbelievably low cost. In fact, I also wanted to remind you, Vidukesh, that there was a time when the Assam Valley School also gave us an order and we supplied it for your school to distribute in the villages around. But by this time, I knew that now we were moving into a different territory. So I commissioned my commerce students to develop a business plan so that we could set up this unit in the village itself, the village where we were supplying this napkin. We needed to now set up the machine there. So the new fabricated machine has been set up over there. The women are working. We helped them to set up a self-help group, which has been registered. We ensured that the compliances with the state government and the district government have been carried out. We have been not only helping the women to market the product, but we have also continued our own manufacturing, and we are supplying it free of cost. For the women who are working in the village, we are helping them to earn a living as well as raise the standard of hygiene in that area. But as far as our own machine is concerned, we continue to produce, and we have been supplying to another area in Gwalior, but we have also been supplying as relief work. In the Kashmir floods, we had sent napkins to Baramulla. We had sent napkins to Kathmandu during the Nepal earthquake. We sent napkins to Kerala during the floods there. Even during the pandemic, we have, although the students are not here, but the campus staff that is now working on the machine, we have sent 12,400 napkins to the civil supplies department in Gwalior. So the learnings from this have been huge. There is the feeling that there is a service element to entrepreneurship. The risk that General Kulkarni was talking about, that is something which I think a lot of people experience when they want to start out an enterprise. But at this age, if they have seen and worked on an enterprise where they have seen success, where they have tasted success, somehow guards them a little bit from that risk averseness. And I think that is a very important thing, because there are package programs which the government is promoting. So anybody who wants to start an enterprise can get all the help that he or she needs. But to undertake the risk, to have the mindset to undertake the enterprise, is something which is up to us as educators at this level. So I think giving an experience of enterprise at the school level is perhaps the best way to promote this.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you very much for sharing the whole thing in such a detailed manner. And honestly, I personally feel that service learning is and must be part of our education. And for the viewers, I think you can differentiate that how certain things which we keep believing that's only at theoretical level and you keep discussing, but there are organizations, there are schools, they are putting it on in action and it's happening. And not only that, they are doing it, but they're also impacting the society in the nearby area and far out till the Kashmir part. So let's move to Kulkarni, sir. And sir, you talked about the risk taking. If I may ask you, what kind of say opportunities are there in your school where you guys are kind of promoting this risk taking ability and that kind of stuff to promote at the end of the day entrepreneurship skills on that kind of stuff? So you're muted.
First and foremost, once more, I want to applaud Nishi ma'am for that work that they have been doing. It's incredible. She's been very modest in describing it, but actually the life-changing impact it's had on her students, because I've met some of them, is absolutely unbelievable. So, and they've learned to believe in themselves that they can make a difference to society.
Absolutely.
That is one important thing. When it comes to entrepreneurship, risk is only one factor. All right. It must start with an idea that you will go beyond the box. And somebody mentioned something about this whole idea of creativity. I think ma'am mentioned about creativity and critical thinking. You've got to question the status quo. So if you have a culture in school where whatever is told is taken at face value, you will not have a culture of questioning. So you have to question the status quo. Having not questioned it just for the heck of questioning it with the idea of seeing where else can we go after this. What can be done, again, to use her phrase, what can we do differently? What can we do better? This is important. The next important thing in entrepreneurship is, which is an advantage for students in schools like mine, is they can take risk because they don't have to worry about their next meal. Please understand, when they go into entrepreneurship, they know that they are not going to be on the streets with nothing in hand. So therefore, their capacity to take risk is higher. The real challenge lies in identifying meaningful projects. Just like women's health and hygiene is critical, The same way in this present time, I have a young boy just finishing 12th, but been sitting at home for last 1 year. His father is an industrialist in Aligarh. This boy has now gone and manufactured a oxygen concentrator. And that oxygen concentrator, let me tell you, for some of you who may know, there's a teacher of mine called Sanjay Khati. He's looking after his dad in Haldwani. These boys have supplied it to him, obviously, gratis, to look after his father, and he's using this oxygen concentrator today. All right. Now, my point is, therefore, if it is meaningful for society, it is relevant. The capacity to take risk is high, and therefore there are a large number of forums. Some of it may be very innocuous. For example, boys set up their own organic farm in school. They came with the idea, we said, okay, we'll back you up, but you will do everything. And as ma'am was saying, the labor part, I said, no staff will help you. The labor you will do yourself. Similarly, there is a boy, a very young alum of ours, who has other businesses, but he started a company called Green Soul, and I think some of you may have heard of it, where they take these torn shoes and all, I mean, what we discard, they resole them, then they sell it to people like us who fund it, and then they give it free to poor people. But actually, a poor person getting a free shoe, when I subscribe to it as a donor, I am paying a very nominal amount. And this guy is doing it. I mean, I can just go on and on. The sky is the limit. But as I said, the advantage is they know they will not go hungry tomorrow morning. The other thing is even venture capitalists. I'll give you an example of my own son. He now works for a startup. He's an IIM Cal graduate. He's worked for Deloitte for many years. Then he said, look, I want to do something which matters. So he's working in his own startup, right? But again, he's not worried ki kal khana kahan se milega. So please understand this, that risk taking is only one minor factor in this. Now, people who give you capital will give you capital for your idea. And the processes you have put into place to take it to a successful conclusion. Nobody's going to throw, Ratan Tatas and all will not throw money at you for nothing. Okay, so you got to have this big idea. You got to show that where it will go. Now, many of the big ideas will fail. But if you have it in you, you will sooner or later succeed. All the famous unicorn types, you talk to them, they'll all tell you, look, one success you're talking about, I'll tell you about 10 of my repeated failures and the mistakes I made. So that is the next big thing a school culture has to allow. That to encourage people, we keep talking about let them fail. No, we don't want them to fail, please. But we want them to learn to make mistakes and learn from them. If you make one mistake or you learn from another guy's mistake, you're a smart guy. If you repeat your mistakes, you're a stupid guy. So it's important to see the mistakes. And all of you are conducting, project-based learning in your schools. What is the principle behind it? That you go down a path, you find you have made a dead end, you realize a mistake, and you start again, and you come to your product. So I am a firm believer that the school environment, especially amongst the people who are sitting on this forum, can easily generate a climate where questioning is encouraged, where mistakes are allowed. Failure is not encouraged, but mistakes are allowed. And if you go beyond class, and in fact, we have a catchphrase for it, that you go beyond classroom, beyond curriculum, and go beyond campus. The world is there outside. They live in a cocoon out here. And as Jack Ma used to famously say, there is a lot of money to be made at the bottom of the pyramid and wherever the complaints are. So if in the pandemic, oxygen was the complaint, well, if you come up with a concentrator, you come with the right product. So, I mean, I have no exception apart from Nishi ma'am. I know the other schools are also doing some great work. I'm aware of it.
Thank you, sir. Let's move to Skan for this particular question. Skan, you are in Hyderabad and the city of technology, and obviously we have heard about different people talking about different aspect of enterprise and the culture of how you allow people to make mistakes and learn from the mistakes. But my question to you is, how do you think that relevant technology education foster the necessary organizational skills needed to be a successful entrepreneur? And I'm pretty aware that your school is having so many kind of opportunities where students, they connect with technology. Can you just give some examples from your school and your practices?
See, Vidukesh, technology is a necessity. I mean, it's a necessary evil, if you may say so. You cannot stay away from technology. It is here to stay, whether we like it or we don't like it. But how you use technology is something which is very, very important and very, very crucial. I know quite a lot of schools who have allowed students to bring gadgets to their school 24/7. They are always on the laptop. I was when I was a housemaster, I think I used to have a discussion with a lot of my colleagues that the saddest part is that when I became a housemaster, I would walk into the dorms in the middle of the night and see 4 or 5 boys sitting and talking, and I would just ask them to go to bed. And the sad part is, I go at the same time, they are all awake, but they are all on their personal laptops, sitting on different beds, which was very, very sad for me to see. So I think very, very important is that you have to balance out the technology. You work technology around your like Adobe, for example. Adobe has some beautiful platforms for children to work on. Disha is one of their platforms. Creativity or making films is one of their platforms. Allow the children to work. Maybe you can, as General Kulkarni said, if you allow them to go beyond classroom. Unfortunately, we still haven't come out of the mindset of leaving the labs. No one stops us doing a chemistry experiment in the fields or biology experiment somewhere on the campus. Why do you have to be inside the lab? Similarly, when it comes on technology, the sky is the limit. There is augmented reality. There is virtual reality. There is artificial intelligence people are talking about. We were taught about volcanic eruption in a very theoretical manner, maybe with the help of a diagram. Now you can actually sit inside or stand inside the volcanic eruption and actually see it happening with the augmented reality. I think those are the components which we need to bring into education very carefully. And that's where the job of us as the educational leaders becomes more critical as well, that we have to be ahead of time. You cannot by just bringing in computers or laptops in the school, by having smart boards, giving them some projects on the system is not going to help. You have to create, like, for example, I'll give you some example that when this pandemic hit, I think most of the schools must have done it. We were also thrown with a lot of challenges as to how to engage children. 99% of our inter-house competitions we conducted virtually. Whether it is intra-house dance, whether it is intra-house music, whether it is intra-house cooking, So the technology played a beautiful role there in terms of making, and everything was managed by the students from the word go. So you have to give them those slow exposures, and as a result, and they will take it forward on their own as well. There was one competition they were preparing for, and if I remember correctly, I think that was organized under the headship of Nishi ma'am, was no instrument music. There was something they organized, and it was fascinating to see that students came up with a music video without using any instrument. So they used scale, they used geometry box, they used books, and that's how the music was created. So I think those are the ideas which need to be brought in, and most importantly, we need to be shouting out for help whenever we need. There is so much to learn from across the world. I think educational world has never been so close than what it is today due to pandemic, than what it was earlier. So I think you need to be open to that change, but don't be too dependent on technology. Allow it to be a mean of learning. I think that's what I feel.
Okay. Thank you very much. My next question is for Madhur ma'am. And ma'am, if I may just ask you, do you think that using technology and will motivate students to be smart future leaders?
See, of course, as mentioned, technology is a necessity. We cannot go away with technology. And the way with the today's world, if we see how it is moving, and we don't know in such a short span of time, so much of science and technology which is developing. So if we don't move with that pace, we'll be left behind. And how we can be very smart in using that. So first of all, it is very important for us to inculcate those skill sets among the student. What is actually required? It could be if we are doing any kind of marketing, if we take into entrepreneurship. Now, keeping an accounting of whatever we are doing could be as a paper pen also. But are we teaching them how to do online accounting? Data which we do maybe on paper with pen, but are we teaching them how to collate data, how to interview people and then collate data and statistically analyze those data, seeing what is a market trend? It is very important to study those statistical data and to see what is the current trend which is going on, because that is how they will get prepared for the future. So it is very important to keep a pace with what is there in the market. Then only it will lead to, but there, of course, as mentioned before also, you have to have, we can't be completely dependent on technology. There has to be a very, very thin line which needs to be drawn to, keep a balance on that. Now, if talking about introducing entrepreneurship, do we introduce design thinking? Design thinking is nowhere in the school curriculum as such, but how do we introduce to make them a little outline of entrepreneurship? So first of all, as Nishi ma'am mentioned just now, that they started with the sanitary napkin. So the first thing which needs to be introduced is empathize. So here comes the life skill. So this is not technology, but here comes the life skill, which is very important to empathize, to identify the problem, the need, and then very smartly deal with the technology or use the knowledge of technology and make or bring a change which is important, which means what we can say is to bring out a particular, whatever the change we need to bring, which is of course for the good cause. That is how we can actually, make it as a, it is very important for us to have these smart learning also, smart skills also for the entrepreneurship. So where we call it as a balance.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for bringing out this human element. And I think we all are talking of that part. But let me ask, and Mr. Sanjay Srivastav, sir, this is a question for you, sir. No, if we blend like a marketing and technology education, do you think the outcome will kind of, encourage students to learn entrepreneurship and it may lead to social innovation?
Say that again, I didn't understand.
I said, if you just say blend our marketing and technology education, because, certain kind of stuff, and if you blend it, do you think it will lead to effective outcomes and encourage students to foster entrepreneurship skills and which will lead to social innovation?
Yes, certainly. It will definitely help the students if we are blending the technology with this thing. So children will definitely come out, but we need to make certain curriculum planning and implement that accordingly so that it can be taken successfully with the students and the parents.
Thank you very much. And before we have a concluding remarks, let me take one or two odd questions. Let me see the chat box. And yes, one very interesting question is how artificial intelligence skills and financial marketing management skills are useful in teaching? May I request Kulkarni sir to answer this?
Yeah, there was a little distortion. Can I just have the question again, please?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, sir. It says how artificial intelligence skills and financial marketing management skills are useful in teaching today.
Yeah. You see, there is a very sharp segmentation in the markets today. Nobody does that full page advertising in newspaper type of culture is over. Today, if you suddenly go online and try and book a ticket from Guwahati to Delhi, you start getting ads from, in your inbox about, cheap flights to Delhi from Guwahati, good hotels to stay in Delhi, blah, blah. Okay, there is very sharp segmentation and differentiation in the market. This is based ultimately on data. And, as the famous saying goes, data is the new oil. One of the weaknesses we have as a country is that we are very poor with record keeping. If you see all our historical records from the British era, their land records and their description of their journeys, etc., are so elaborate and this thing. Whereas if you take in the last 70 years, the amount of history we have a good tradition of oral history, but not a good history of of a recording culture. And therefore, capturing data and using it as a tool for decision making or data analytics, whatever you want to call it, is critical. Artificial intelligence is ultimately a method of extrapolating patterns, right? Now, how do you extrapolate a pattern if you didn't establish the pattern in the first place? So I can teach you the theory of artificial intelligence, and it'll be of no good to your students in applying it in their real life if you don't teach them as to how capturing every single data point will help them to interpret for the future. For example, recently there was a study by Lancet magazine, you may have read it, about population trends all the way up to 2100. Okay, who knows exactly what will happen in 2100? None of us are going to be there. But they have predicted, for example, that what will be the population of India, US, Iran, Japan, anything, right? It is based on modeling. And what is this modeling based on? On patterns. What is the, the birth rate? What is the, death rate of infants, blah, blah, all those parameters which go into it. So therefore, anybody who studied anything about artificial intelligence, and I'm like Skand, very proud humanities guy. Okay, but it is string theory of numbers, if you get back to it. And it establishes patterns. Unfortunately, it has become fashionable to talk about artificial intelligence as a magic wand to solve everything. So I would like to give a real sort of call for reality check here. Please, let me tell you, even as I speak to you, Vidikesh, I'm setting up an AI lab in my school this year. I got delayed partly because of this construction workers are not here. But everything is in place, designs, everything is in place. I'm all for it. But the fact of the matter is, what is the purpose of it? The purpose of it is that till my school doesn't, or my students don't learn to capture every piece of data around them, they will never be able to use AI sensibly or to their advantage. Okay. So I'll give you a small example. Today on the internet, everywhere in YouTube and all, you can get time series graphs. That, okay, in COVID, in which month by month, which countries had how many cases, how many fatalities and all that. It's a running graph. What is this based on? And why do they tell you when will this second wave go down? It's again the same thing. They're watching patterns. So, and because a lot of scientists who come on TV every day tell you, doctors, look, we don't have enough data to give, sensible advice and guidance about the pandemic. So therefore, it's my very humble request to all my fellow educators who have far more experience in teaching than I do, that please don't use this as a magic wand. I hear it everywhere, that's what I'm saying. And when you start talking to people about it, not the basement, the foundation for AI is not being built up in the school.
I think Nishi ma'am wants to say something, but sir, before that, just a comment,
Before she shoots me, let me switch off my camera.
And thank you very much for taking me from Guwahati to Delhi and put me in some hotel. That happened last in 2000 January, 2020 January. So thank you very much for taking me at least out of this place for, after 15 months. That was wonderful knowing. Nishi ma'am, you want to add something here?
Yes, I just wanted to say that, online community engagement has a lot of opportunities, but it also comes with its challenges. The most important being the digital divide. If we are to look at teaching about artificial intelligence, financial marketing, or any kind of use of technology, we are always faced with the digital divide where devices itself are not available. However, it is my opinion that the international reach of the internet can help to bridge this divide also, because there are a lot of funds which are to be had for this purpose. And the second point that I wanted to make is that there can be a lot of capacity building because of artificial intelligence. For example, lesser known sectors like, let's say, a psycho-oncologist, a counselor who counsels people with cancer, or their caregivers or the family. there are very, very few of these. And with the correct data which is inputted, as General Saab was saying, the capacity building, even if a cancer patient or his caregiver has to talk to a chatbot, would be so much more personalized and so much more helpful, especially in terms of creating a diet plan, in terms of reaching a volunteer somewhere in the world. So the capacity building through the AI is a huge opportunity, which I think should be made use of.
Thank you, ma'am. And the final question is it science to liberal education or science with liberal education? What kind of choices the student should make? And may I ask Madhur ma'am to comment on this?
If you could just repeat the question.
Ma'am, is it science to liberal education or science with liberal education? What combination you will suggest to students?
I think science with liberal education. Okay, right. So I think I'll suggest for science with liberal education.
And any reasons for that? Any reason, or anyone else and from the panelists, if they want to comment on this? Skan, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'll just add. See, there are different terms here. One is liberal education, one is liberal arts, and one is humanities, right? So liberal education has to be taken as a term, education in holistic manner. It can't be compared with science to liberal education or science with liberal education. Whether you study science, whether you study commerce, whether you study humanities, your education has to be liberal education, liberal in nature, wherein there are more opportunities for children to learn. There are more opportunities for them to experiment. Like, for example, we have started farming on campus. It is one of the part of the liberal education, right? We have, whether you are from science background, you're from humanities background, you're from commerce background, when you come and do farming, you learn everything about it. Liberal education and liberal arts are completely two different streams. So I think education per se has to be liberal in nature. If you have too rigid regimentation of education, it cannot grow in today's time and age. All the fellow panelists have said in last hour or so that how you have to bring in new ideas, how you have to encourage students to bring new ideas, how you have to encourage your faculty to bring new ideas on the table and let them experiment, let them take chances with that. So what if they make mistakes? That is what I mean about liberal education. If that's what the individual was trying to ask, I think education has to be liberal in nature, which should involve everything as such, and it should not be narrow-minded towards the textbooks. It should go beyond the textbooks, beyond the school, as General Kulkarni said.
Thank you very much. And let's go to the concluding remarks. And may I request the panelists to take around 30 to 40 seconds or less than a minute time to give your concluding remarks on how do you see, like, overall, after listening to each other, maybe do you have any change or anything for the parents and for the students as their takeaway from this particular session? Let me begin with Madhur ma'am.
I think role of a teacher or an educationist, we should be to facilitate and empower students so that they are able to take their interest forward. We allow them to dream. We allow them to actualize whatever they are dreaming with a strong conviction. And as teachers, we should act as a catalyst, but we should not be a part of a reaction. So we allow them that much of freedom. Now, how do we do that? We have to work on designing, implementing, and basically doing the transaction of that particular curriculum so that we are able to give them enough exposure to academics, vocational, financial knowledge. And of course, we cannot avoid integrating technology with, what as just now mentioned by Red, in a holistic way, with interdisciplinary approach. There shouldn't be any compartmentalization. Even if we see the new education policy also talks about it, to go away with the barriers of these compartments, make it more real life, lifelong learning. And very important, to make them competent enough and give them those skill sets which make them or prepare them for the smooth transition, which we don't know what the future is, what pandemic has taught us just now.
Thank you, ma'am.
So much.
Thank you, ma'am. Sanjay sir? quick remark for 40 seconds.
Yeah, it was an excellent conversation amongst all the panelists. We had a good discussion. We all schools and all the teachers are getting into technology. We are getting technologically trained, and so the children are also. We must the parent must take it from here that technology is now one of the tool which will help in educating their children. So that has become a part of it. That is what the parent has now to understand and implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Skand?
Well, thank you so much. It was really a lot of learning here. I think the responsibility is immense, and there is so much to learn from Nishi ma'am and General Kulkarni here. Nishi ma'am very conveniently could have taken an easy way out, like most of us educational leaders do. But even at this juncture of her life, even at this time, she went ahead with that entrepreneurial model in her school, which is not just an entrepreneurial initiative, but also social service. You know, it is transforming so many lives, not just in our school, but around as well. So I think we need to learn from these kind of experiences and maybe make most of it. And we should not allow our children to make mistakes, but we should also try and make mistakes at times. It can be very, very useful for us, because that means that we are constantly changing and trying to improve. So quite a lot of takeaways from the session. I thank all my fellow panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Khan. Kulkarni sir?
Yeah, there was one dimension which I think we could cover, and that is in entrepreneurship is the ethical dimension. You know, we don't want our students to learn to become fly-by-night operators. And therefore, over a period of time, the element of trust and credibility is very important. You take, you know, if I mention certain business houses and if I mention the Tatas, you will say, yeah, the trust factor is higher there. And that has taken them more than a century to establish. So the ethical dimension of doing business is very important, because short-term gains will be found by taking shortcuts. And this is one element we need to keep driving home to our children. And I think this is something we need to drive home to the parents as well. It's often driven home more in the school and less at home.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Nishi ma'am, for your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Vidukesh. I feel that for me personally, the goal of what a girl from my school should be like when she leaves the school is always incomplete unless I send her out with that one big idea to change the world. So arming her with that one big idea is something which I would like to do throughout her schooling, so that by the time she goes out, she's got this one big idea, which is naturally a disruptive idea. And a disruptive idea cannot be had unless everything that we have spoken about today, taking risks, being out of the box thinkers, being lifelong learners, unless all of that is put into place, this dream cannot happen. So to put it into a vision for a school leaver should be to let the person leave school with that one big idea to change the world.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you very much all the panelists. If I may just conclude, I think it's a very interesting learning that we started with the business model and then we concluded with the ethics and the impact. I think, and that's the beauty of conversation when we have eminent educationists around it. But if I have to comment and if I have to conclude, I think it's very, very important to understand that what kind of students we are producing at the end of the day, and everyone has echoed the thought that it should have that kind of impact at the end of the day on the community and in and around the world. That's very important. And the second takeaway, I think what all of you have agreed that schools have the responsibility to create the environment and the ambience and the setup where you are allowed to make mistakes. And not only that, you are learning from your mistakes and you're growing. And technology obviously has to play a very important role, but we should not forget that technology is operated by humans, and that's why humans are also equally important, and sometimes I think more important than technology. And that's why we need to invest in humans and their ethics and their value system, which at the end of the day, if the value system is right, they are going to produce a certain kind of citizen which is going to help the community and the country. Thank you very much for your time. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you so much, sir. What a remarkable and insightful discussion. Thank you so much to each and every speaker for being here with us on this wonderful forum. With Dukesh, sir, you did a marvelous job moderating the whole session. And thank you all once again. Looking forward to hosting you sometime in the future. Thank you so much once again. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now I'd request the backend team to play a short video. Wonderful. Now let's jump on to the last panel discussion of the day. The topic of discussion is emphasis on mental health awareness and programs to foster interdisciplinary skills to shape socially conscious future leaders and professionals. Now I'd like to welcome the eminent speakers we have in here today with us, starting from Mr. Yatharth Gautam. He's the Director and Chief Marketing Officer, Birla Open Minds. Welcome you, sir.
Welcome, Ataji.
Then we have Ms. Anjali Razdan, Dean Education, Rockwood Group of Schools, and Director Academics, Solon Public School. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome, Anjali.
Thank you very much, Rahul.
Then we have Mr. Anirudh Gupta, CEO, DCM Group of Schools. Welcome, Anirudh, sir.
Hello, sir. Glad to have you over here.
Then we have Ms. Seema Handa, Managing Director, Eklavya School. Welcome, ma'am. And finally, the moderator of this August panel will be Mr. Harish Sanduja, Director of Schools, State Anand Ram Jaipuria Schools. Welcome you, sir. I welcome you all once again.
Glad to see you after such a long time. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and very much looking forward to a wonderful deliberation. Leaving the screen to you, Mr. Harish, to take up the discussion forward.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I think it's pretty interesting for me to be here. And I think it is going to be a good discussion, what we are going to start right now, because it is a very relevant topic that we all are going to discuss today, essentially about the mental health and how the interdisciplinary skills of the students can actually shape up a good and a conscious future for the leaders and the professionals of our country. So I think it's a very relevant thing that we are talking about today. But before I start, Binoy, would you like to give an introduction to everyone, or should we start?
You may start with the discussion, sir. Yes.
Okay. So a very warm welcome to everyone right now. And I think we are having all of you here with us today. And just to kind of initiate the discussion, I would like to state that because of this turbulent time, what has happened is that the mental well-being of the children seems to have got disturbed because one, they have reduced social activities right now. The anxiety levels are pretty high. And we also see that there is still a requirement from the school side that the mainstream curriculum has to be delivered. The interdisciplinary things that used to happen have reduced a lot. And at the same time, there seems to be an emotional crisis which seems to be happening. And on top of all this, the schools actually require the good character to be there with the children. well-being has to be there, emotional stability has to be there, and all those things. It seems to be a very big ask from the children that is happening. So I would just like to initiate and open out this discussion with all of you, starting from Mr. Yatharth Gautam, I would say. So, sir, what do you think, how the interdisciplinary education raises awareness amongst the students and can be good for their mental well-being?
Thank you, Mr. Sanduja. It's an interesting question and quite a critical one, actually, because see, interdisciplinary can mean a plethora of things to many different people. A simplified definition is crossing of two or more traditional fields of study. Now, when we look at interdisciplinary skill sets, you think about collaboration, research, communication, interpersonal skills, flexibility. These are all the key outcomes which come out from a beautifully designed and imparted curriculum in school. Now, the thing is, if I'm going to switch this a little bit and also talk about the mental health aspect, because I personally feel that that's not spoken about enough, especially during these times. The thing is that culture and upbringing play an important role in the aspects around an individual that affects them at a mental processing level. Talk about kids, you just mentioned about it, right? Different people have different responses. Some people fight, some people have the fight and flight response, what we call it. So assurances, internal assurances that a child gives to him or herself, families, friends, schools, these are the places where children look for assurances, right? And they keep the anxiety levels at bay. That's what everyone's trying to, get to. Fear is good. I think it makes an individual stronger mentally when he or she confronts it and especially overcomes it, right? So grassroots levels, which we call, are the single most critical levels that shape a child. And that, I feel, are the family, the social surrounding, and more importantly, the schools.
Okay. That's pretty interesting about the families, the social surrounding, and the collaboration and communication that you have been talking about. I think that makes a lot of sense for the mental well-being that we are looking, as well as the interdisciplinary thing that initiates things. Now, I would put up another question to Seema Handa ma'am here. So, Seema ma'am, how can education about the mental health strategies be good for the students in terms of making them aware about the stress levels and decreasing their anxiety and insecurity? What do you think should be done? Seema ma'am?
Ma'am, you're not audible actually.
There's
still not audible. You may try rejoining. I think that would help.
Okay, in the meantime, Seema ma'am, if you can try rejoining, possibly your audio is likely to work. In the meantime, I can ask a question to Anjali Razdan ma'am. So Anjali ma'am, good to see you here. And I would like to ask you, how can creative mental health therapies at time be useful for interdisciplinary learnings, as well as encourage students to be socially proactive?
Thank you, Harishji, for that question. I'd like to put it the other way around.
Okay.
I think to have a bigger picture of a lot of things, interdisciplinary approach is the wonderful thing to happen, which most of us are lacked in our schooling time, because somehow it was not. We were all learning in islands. Each subject was an island by itself, and we never had bridges between the islands to show that one subject is connected to the other and the other to the third, and that gives us a big picture. So some of that big picture concept was missing, But that's how we grew up in our schooling years. But now that's not there because everything has changed. Education completely has changed 360 degrees. And I wish I was a student all over again to go through that beautiful process. So coming back to the question, interdisciplinary approach is a wonder. It's not a myopic vision of seeing things. It's a very broad umbrella vision of seeing what is the connectivity between why are we learning history and are we learning mathematics at the same time? How is music connected to math? How is rhythm connected to the beats? How is one connected to the other? Once we see the connections in our academic sphere, automatically a connection in our other areas of life is quite evident, and it's possible to explore that. It's just a little spark that we can give to the child in terms of exploring. Once you give a little spark, let's see how environment is connected to happiness, and happiness is connected to maybe meditation and stuff like that. That's how we are interconnecting various aspects of learning, and education is a bigger aspect. Talking about creativity, I think that's what you asked. Creativity is the mother of all of them. I mean, creativity lies at the peak of everything. Anything that you're doing, if you're not creative, trust me, it becomes a mediocre thing. It becomes something which is very average in its performance. And in today's 21st century, mediocrity probably should be just kept aside. Either you excel in that, and then the school should show the way of excelling, not academics, mind you. There are a lot of ways that the children can excel. There are a lot of ways that the children can see the connectivity between various islands that are being taught by some of the teachers in school. There are a lot of ways to keep them happy. There are a lot of ways to distribute this happiness, what they get, and then how they distribute it out to the people that they meet. There are ways and means, and I think interdisciplinary approach of anything, not necessarily academics, is the possible answer to getting onto that creativity, the top level, and being happy. And the mental happiness is definitely a product of your physical happiness, your academic happiness. I hope that that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. That seems to be very relevant, and especially what you're talking about, excellence and avoiding mediocrity, and looking at various aspects of interdisciplinary approach, looking at music and history and maths together. I think it's a fairly good job to be done to have those connections, perhaps which are very much required for being a holistic persona. I would like to ask another question to Mr. Anirudh Gupta, who has joined us. I think it's important for us to take your opinion on how education can encourage students to form social help groups in order to advance themselves, so that they can avoid various emotional backlogs or emotional upheavals that may be kind of faced in current scenario. So the social help groups.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. So, as we all are going through unprecedented situation, and every school, every institution, every college, teacher, every university is trying to ensure that the learning continues unabated. Fine. So while we're trying to ensure that, and we're looking into the curriculum aspect, we're looking into the continuity of virtual education. It's very important, extremely important for all of us to ensure the mental and physical well-being of the students. Fine. So a lot of efforts, we have just introduced laughing yoga. Fine. So there has been study conducted by Stanford University professors how laughter yoga can help the children learn better. So from there's so many ways, as I said, about laughter yoga, and to ensure children are not subjected to any kind of stress. So very important and very relevant topic we are discussing. Coming to the question you asked. So what we happen, especially when we talk about the premium schools, India is a land of diversity. We have schools, right? A 4-room school to a school in 40 acres. We have so much of diversity and in schools, and we are catering to the heterogeneous classrooms. We have people, students, from first-time learners to students from affluent families, and especially after the introduction of RT, they are all sitting under one roof. So it's very important for all of us to sensitize the students about all the social and emotional aspects. Fine. We as an organization, what we have been doing, taking the children to the orphanage, involving them in a lot of community outreach programs, taking them to blind homes, though this was happening, before this pandemic struck. So we're working out on a lot of such initiatives where the children could be sensitized about the various, social aspects, and they could, understand that, the kind of education being provided to them, the kind of money being spent by the parents on their education. So between the, they could understand the difference between the have and have nots. They could feel the pain of the, the kids, the parents, who are not so privileged, who cannot afford, the kind of premium schools. So this was happening before pandemic, and after pandemic, since we are seeing this, lot of digital divide, I'll say, where the children, some of them do not have gadgets, some of them do not have, access to the online education. So here also we are involving the students, in a lot of such projects, like we've started class on wheels, where some of the teachers and students, after getting them identified from the parents, are reaching out to the students virtually and physically also, who do not have access to technology and access to good quality education. So extremely important that, the students, we are taking care of the social and emotional aspect. And another dimension to it, we all understand that how important is emotional quotient these days, over and above the, IQ. So all these things, club together, right from the, ensuring the physical and mental endurance, to taking care of the, mental well-being of the students through various initiatives, having a strong connect with them, during this, not just on the record, off the record also. So we ensure the teachers are connected to the students, 24/7, handling their small, even domestic issues also, to the taking care of the social and emotional aspects, through various activities. So all these things are very important. And we were also talking about the interdisciplinary education, which I feel is extremely important for all the 21st century skills, especially the critical thinking skills, to ensure their cognitive development. So the more, done towards all these areas, the lesser it is. So while we are focusing on the academic aspects, while we are putting our energies, putting our efforts to ensure that, the learning, continues. So it's extremely important for all the educators, for all the stakeholders, to take care of the, as we said, the, the emotional and mental well-being, to ensure that, the kids are happy. As such, there's so much of negativities in the society, and there's so much of pain in the society. So how to spread happiness, how to spread positivity, as I already said, that, laughing, we are using it as a great tool, where all the children are laughing together 5 minutes before the start of virtual education. So all these initiatives put up together, so we are trying to take care of the children. And I'll suggest the same to all the educationists and all the stakeholders, that, nowadays, this is one critical area which we cannot afford to overlook.
Yeah, thank you. I think what you mentioned was very categorically developing empathy in the children, and utilizing certain help of laughter yoga, and also making sure that the children are doing socially productive work, which helps them to go further and beyond what they are trying to do. So that makes them more relevant and significant. So my next question would be to Seema ma'am. I hope your audio is back, Seema ma'am. Hello.
I hope the same too.
Oh yes. Oh yes. That's pretty good now. So Seema ma'am, I just wanted to ask you. I'll repeat my question, which I had actually asked. So how can the education about mental health strategies be given to the children so that they are reducing their social stress and anxiety and insecurity that seems to be persisting right now? So how can this awareness help them?
I've been listening into the other panelists, and I absolutely agree with them. But I would like to hear, perhaps go off at a tangent and take a step back and look at the question of mental health. What really do we mean in the realm of mental health? Our approach to mental health is more or less reactive. Very little of it is proactive. And the reason for that is that when we define mental health, we actually look at the cognitive development of the mind. Perhaps the focus, even within the realm of education, the entire focus is on either development of skill or the cognitive knowledge and information ability of the brain. We are not focusing so much on the social or the emotional development, whereas that actually is the basis of mental health. Academics is, like I said, totally focused on, and that today is becoming more and more irrelevant. Knowledge is at your fingertips. Information can be downloaded as and when required. You do not need to memorize it. You do not need to store it. It's available at the click of a button.
Yeah.
So when we talk of mental health, actually, if I were to compare this maybe to the Industrial Revolution, I would say we are in perhaps the second phase, which was the mechanization, mass production. To take it to the next level, the next phase, we should actually be looking at purely how are we developing the mental and social, I would say the socio-emotional growth of the students. Academics would take a secondary, would play a secondary role. The primary role would be to have a child who is emotionally and socially well adjusted, well developed, with all the 13 skills that we say which are required for socio-emotional development. And then after the child has reached a certain level of maturity, his interests, his aptitude will come to the fore, and those areas can be explored. He can develop a skill in that area. He can pursue any academics that he is interested in. I think if that was the kind of approach that we followed in education, it's actually inverted in a way. We are focusing on perhaps white collar and blue collar, which is skill based and knowledge based. But we are not so much focused on the yellow collar. What is the attitude? Most important, what is the attitude that a person brings to life? And the aptitude. The aptitude will decide what career options or what skills the child will follow. But the attitude is something which is universal, no matter what career or what age or stage in life the student is. So when we talk of education, actually we should be looking at much beyond the cognitive development, but at the socio-emotional, for use of better words, at the socio-emotional development of the child. And some work, I'd just like to share here, some work has already been done. It's being done in pockets. I do know of Punjab Technical University, which has a course, it's an MTech course. It's a master's in technology course in human values. So the objective of this course is that you can make an engineer, but that knowledge of engineering, should it be, what is the right application of that knowledge? Unless that knowledge and information or skill is used for the larger good of humanity, being an engineer really, the knowledge and skill could also be used for the adverse impact on society. So who is to decide? How are you to decide? So that is where this MTech gives you a clear path as to how to apply your knowledge and how to ensure that your actions are ultimately for your own good and also for the larger good of your community and the world at large.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think if we were to re-examine how we approach mental health, perhaps that would help us really to refocus and understand where education should be going.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And especially your stress on social emotional learning is very, very important. And I think that is going to make a difference in the lives of children. I would like to ask one more question to Anjali ma'am. Anjali ma'am, what we are seeing right now is a lot of children are going through the stress of anxiety and being alone, socially kind of staying at their own place, only watching screens. And somehow the children are getting overstressed because of this entire gamut of things which is happening around them. So we used to talk about growth mindset and all those things. So how to help out children right now in this phase where the anxiety levels really come down? Can you give us some tips or for the audience also?
Thank you. I don't know what tips to give because not only are the kids going through that level, but I guess all of us are going through the same levels.
Oh,
we
yes.
adults, I think we are about to tear our hair off because of whatever is happening. And because we are adults, so we can't express it. And because they're kids, so they can express it. And that's all the more reasons to, kind of feel bad about it. All right, that was in the lighter vein. Coming back to what are the kids, what do we do about what's happening around? I think in my knowledge or in my understanding of things, I don't know if you came across long time back, same 6 months back, I read in the paper, India, by virtue of our schooling and our upbringing, we lack in happiness quotient. We are the second last country in the world in terms of being happy. That's our, we're intrinsically not very happy people. So I guess first we have to address that and then possibly come to what's happening now. We're not happy people. Even if we are, that is being completely chopped off, suppressed, possibly with our beautiful schooling that's going on in the education system. Whatever little is left of anybody is been chopped off, saying, you don't have no right to be happy. So I guess that's one thing which we have to change in our pattern of education fundamentally. COVID or no COVID, that's a different matter. Let the COVID, kind of come back and we come back to normalcy. We'll still have the same problem that our happiness quotient has to go up. So where does it start? I think it starts from us adults. It starts from the parents. It starts from a kind of lot of angles. If you see that happiness has to be put in. And what is happiness basically? Happiness is nothing but state of mind. You can be happy with one tiny chocolate. You can be unhappy with millions of chocolates around you as a child. I'm just saying. You can be unhappy because that doesn't really make you happy. So happiness is the state of mind. And I guess in terms of these difficult times, when we have the online education going on, we're bombarding kids with, all the matter. Everybody is ready to, cover up their syllabus instead of uncovering it up, instead of uncovering. Everybody at every level is making sure that whatever little happiness we have in our system is chopped off. So can we, my question again bounced back to the people and all of us, is that what can we do to bring this happiness back? Why are we so obsessed with making it very, very prim and proper, making it very, very strict, making it very, very stiff? Why can't we be loose? Why can't we loosen ourselves? And therefore, acceptance comes in with loosening. Why can't we be unforgiving? We are very punished, kind of people who will punish till the end, till we see that you've done a mistake. Why can't we forgive the mistakes? We're humans. If these things are slightly put up in the families, as well as in our systems, why are we covering our syllabus? First of all, I don't understand. Why are we covering it? There are parents, who are so obsessed with covering, and then they tell a teacher what a teacher should do. I don't know why they don't tell a doctor what a doctor should do. Because the doctor will say, am I a doctor or you're a doctor? But the teacher somehow gets, antagonized by a parent saying, I don't think you've done this and you don't think you've done that. And the poor teacher loses all the confidence. So let that little bit of autonomy come to the system of education where each one has said, there's no need to have a rat race. I'll just twist it a little more. COVID-19 has taught us a lot of lessons. It has taught us also how to be happy. Somehow we are not using it, It has taught us to accept things the way they are. It has taught us to be happy with very small things. And somehow we learned that in the last year, most of us learned, or most of us became very resilient. Most of us became humble. But again, in this year, I find somehow as human beings, we come back again to, where is this and where is that? Our wants and needs again, started scrambling for more power. I guess we have to sustain what coronavirus has taught us. Let's be grateful for it, that it has taught us to go beyond the boundaries. It has taught us to do something which was never impossible earlier. Why don't we look at the gratitude part of things? If we look at those things, trust me, that is happiness. And if there is happiness, there is mental well-being. And if there is mental well-being, I guess one doesn't have to explain that why can't we be more resilient? Why can't our happiness quotient go up? And why can't we be typically not scared of, education and schooling? I'm talking in the educational context. Other context, I don't think I have a right to talk about. So if and education is a basis, is a bedrock of every other profession, is a bedrock of our future leaders, is a bedrock of everything that's going to come up in the next century, because we are dealing with kids who are vulnerable to this kind of mindset. So it's our duty. I think we are very important people. Educationists are very, very important people, I would consider, because you are dealing with the future prime ministers, the future country leaders, the future terrorists maybe also. You're dealing with all kinds of people who are going to grow up into that. So it's your duty to see that you blend in that little educational quotient, happiness quotient into our system and make it more viable. It's in our hands.
Harish, I'd like to add one small story here. So as we see, teachers asking the students in a classroom that, okay, what do you want to become? So there was a teacher asking every child that, okay, fine, what do you want to become? And as we generally see, somebody wants to be a doctor, somebody wants to be a pilot. So there was a small little child. So when the teacher asked him, he said, ma'am, I want to be happy. So the teacher asked again, okay, beta, no, tell me, what do you want to become? And he said, no, ma'am, I want to become happy. So then she said, beta, probably you do not understand the purpose of education. And the child replied, ma'am, probably you do not understand the purpose of life. So happiness is extremely important, and I'm happy that some of the states, like Anjali was talking about, that we are almost 174th in terms of happiness index. Fine. And there are countries like Dubai who have already initiated Ministry for Happiness. Fine. The countries as a nation, they are contemplating that how do they ensure the people are more happier. Fine. So can't we think about the happiness in the curriculum? Can't happiness be an integral part of the curriculum? Like Delhi government has taken some initiatives on that aspect. So it's very important. And as Anjali said that, if we are happy, ultimately, what are we doing everything for? We all want to be happy, and we are happy, ultimately will be, mentally, feeling good. And if you are mentally feeling good, that is why I was talking about this laughing. A lot of, endorphins are generated from our brain, which actually, helps us in learning and retaining more. Fine. So one thing, I like to add here more is that whatever I personally feel is taught to the child in terms of content. Fine. In terms of subject knowledge, a child is in a school for almost 15 years, from nursery to grade 12. So whatever is taught to the child in terms of content or, around curriculum, so if we subtract it from the, child's personality at the end of grade 12, whatever is left with the child is what education is. Yep. So we have to understand that it's not about marks, it's about making a mark, and we all can make a mark only if we are, happy within.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for giving your inputs on that, Anirudhji. And I would like to ask in continuation with this, because right now, because the crisis is there like this, and every crisis gives you an opportunity to develop leadership. So maybe Yatharth ji can put some thoughts on this and tell us how the leadership can be developed during this crisis amongst the students.
See, I think leadership, to be honest, is something that children or leaders today, we've all learned it through our schooling and through the challenges we've seen and through how, things have changed and how we've reacted. I'm coming back to the flexibility that I spoke about earlier. It's interesting because I'll just share something I read today. It was an article in the Deccan Chronicle by Miss Devi Kar from Kolkata. The latest data from the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is based in Geneva from 2019, so this is pre-COVID, Samsung filed more patents than all of India. That's one company, right? And what was India's contribution? Less than 1% to the world global finance. Now we talk about, startups right now, and they're becoming unicorns, and suddenly everyone's flying. Look at the reality. Look at the facts. These are figures, right? Now, it's easy to say, and some people do correctly argue that it's possibly schools are to be blamed because the kids are not creative. I'm going to take this from Anjali ma'am, actually, what you were saying. I completely agree with that. Happiness. Where's the happiness? Happiness also brings you creativity. A child, like my younger daughter, she loves to paint. I tell her to do anything else, she will not do it. Painting, she's always say, yes, Papa, I have no problems. So I think it all boils down also to how mentally strong and correctly nurtured the children are going through the schooling process, right? Because we also have to, as educators, take accountability and understand. Sometimes the curriculum is great, the delivery is wrong. Sometimes the delivery is amazing, but the curriculum is wrong, right? You have to identify and plug that gap. We need to be more proactive. I think that's another thing which I think Seema ma'am also said, and Anjali ma'am was also talking about. Because why did it take a pandemic for us to realize the buzzwords of collaboration, of communication? Suddenly everybody wants to talk more on Zoom and all. Why? Why did it take a pandemic? We reacted. If we would have been proactive, I think things would have been very difficult. Different, sorry. Because educators as well, teachers. I know so many teachers in our schools across India. They struggled when the first wave came with the technology and how to use it. This is something that possibly we are to blame. We should have been, inculcating these things, aspects into the teachers, into the students, but we were slow. So I think for leaders and to shape future leaders, any challenge always has a silver lining. That's the way I see it. Obviously, we are much better prepared in the second wave. And I'm pretty sure, God forbid, there's a third wave, we should be much better prepared for that also. But I think that's what my take is on how future leaders go. Because I think just to, if I really want to sum up everything, if you shift the lens towards truly holistic education, it shouldn't be limited to, like Anjali ma'am said, to academics, right? It has to cover, measure, reflect the positive mental health and well-being of children. And I have no doubt that will fast track shaping socially conscious future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially you're pointing towards the fact that India has not been putting enough of patents. That actually shows a lot of, or talks a lot about us as a country, which is not going on the innovation path right now. And we need to, and we hope that with the new education policy and future leaders that we are going to have now, I think we will be able to reverse the situation. One more specific case scenario I would like to ask Seema ma'am. I strongly believe that there would, because principals and directors of the schools more are like doctors at times. They know more about the mental well-being of the children. So I would request Seema ma'am to answer this question. This is an ideal situation where a parent comes to you and says that, okay, my son has now gone into more of introvertedness and is not talking much, doesn't show any interest in anything, seems to be mostly playing computer games and all, and is not talking to people around in the family. So the parent is feeling really, really kind of jolted because of this kind of behavior of an adolescent child. What would you like to say to such parent, and how would you like to help such child?
Um, First of all, it's a huge dichotomy that we are going through at this moment. You know, the very children that we would encourage to leave their devices, to go out and play, to socialize, in fact, are now being told to spend time looking at the screen and to study through the digital devices. So to that extent, you know, there is a total flip over from how we were educating our children and how we were handling issues such as introvertism. Of course, you know, one has to understand, and I'm sure the parents also have to be explained, that there are certain phases in a child's life. You know, a teenager or an adolescent will go through a phase of you know, isolation. The child is trying to transition from being a child who, you know, understands the authority of the parent to transitioning to be an adult where he has to establish his own identity and you know, has to establish his own individuality. So to that extent, there will always be a phase which has to be understood, which has to be dealt with, you know, with great understanding and empathy. So that's something which the parent has to be explained, has to understand. Of course, the school and the parent have to work together. There's a huge role in collaboration and communication between the teachers and the school and the parents to understand the child and to support the child at this time. It's a very crucial juncture, you know, where there is every possibility of the student following a less than desirable path. So to circumvent that, it's very important. Like I said, you know, we have within our school a very multi-layered structure to ensure that nobody falls through the holes or nobody slips through the web. You know, of course, the class teacher is the first line of approach for any student, which presently is a little, you know, because it's all digital, very remote, impersonal. So the connect is a little less, but in the physical environment, the teacher is the first line of support. Also, along with that, we have a very structured mentoring system in the school, where a mentor is assigned to each student, and the mentor is not to be approached at the time of need. It's a proactive approach where the mentor is, you know, has a scheduled meeting with each and every student as per a structure which is defined. So the mentor proactively reaches out to the students and will discuss, you know, any issues which the student may have, which the student may not have verbalized as of now, but which could become issues in the future. In addition, the mentor, you know, redirects the energy of the student, channelizes, motivates the student to make sure that the student optimizes his potential. So it's a more of a proactive approach rather than waiting for something to go wrong and then reacting to it. So that kind of approach, I think, is what will help not only, say, in this case, as you're mentioning, one student, but all students who would be going through this phase. In the times of COVID, it's all the more important for the teachers and the parents to have a close channel of communication, because like I said, everything is very remote, very you know, digital. So there's an element of impersonal approach in the whole process. So there, you know, having a channel of communication is going to play a crucial role.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, having mentors and also having proactive mentors who kind of approach the children even before the crisis. Here, I would like to share one thing is that in my school also we kind of have made certain things because we essentially try to cater to the children and talk about socio-emotional learning. So in last 2-3 years, we had developed a structure for that. And I will take the liberty of sharing with all of you that structure. I'll not take more than 2-3 minutes. I'll just quickly show you the socio-emotional learning. It has basically 5 major competencies that we talk about. One is the self-awareness, the self-management, ability to take a decision and a responsible decision, and the relationship skills and the social awareness. So these are the 5 major competencies, and amongst each competency, we were able to recognize what are the things that we need to talk to the children and develop in them. So like self-awareness, how the things need to be recognized as strengths and weaknesses about a child, and talking about their feelings, recognizing the feelings, seeing their behaviors and all. Then managing self, the second aspect, regulating emotions and thoughts and behavior, being aware about stress and controlling impulses, then being socially aware about the society, the interpersonal struggle, being aware about the environment around us, being able to accurately interpret the emotions of people as well as our own selves. So these are certain things that the children have to be aware of. Then being aware of the relationship skills, the ability to communicate clearly, because any relationship requires you to communicate clearly, and listening well, cooperating with others, resisting any inappropriate social pressure, because this is an extremely important thing that we felt is essential for students to be aware of. Then the negotiating skills under conflict situations and constructively coming out of it, and seeking help whenever required. And responsible decision making has further different aspects like constructive choices, ethical standards, safety concerns, social norms, and a realistic evaluation of the consequences that a student may have. So these are the major 5 aspects of socio-emotional learning which are taught to the children. And when we talk about them, we find that making responsible decisions and communicating them effectively and all those things, they're pretty helpful. And this was all based on a study that had happened in 2011, where the socio-emotional learning showed a serious growth in various aspects of the students' behavior, especially the adolescent children who could understand themselves better. So this whole thing was based on this idea, and we thought that it was extremely important for us as educationists to cater to these things in a very structured manner. So this really helped us in many ways as a school. So I think it was very interesting what Seema ma'am was also telling us about socio-emotional learning and mentorship and the other skills that were pertaining to it. We are just overpassing some of the time. So I would like that before we kind of come to conclusions, I would like to place one question for all of us right now to put some thoughts of ours on. Basically, the question is, how do you think we as educationists should be kind of pushing the socio-emotional learning, the mental well-being for our teachers as well as students together, and especially the adolescent kids? How do you think we should be pushing it right now? Because whatever you all have said, I think that makes a lot of sense. But what is the crux that you're trying to push right now in this discussion? Maybe we can start with Anjali ma'am.
Yeah. Again, I'll twist your question and tweak it a little bit. I think they say charity begins at home. So I would not really agree with the question saying, how do we push it? No need of pushing. Just begin it yourself. To the person who is the educator, to the person who is at the other side of the fence, begin it yourself. Show it, and I'm sure it's going to emulate from all your student community, your colleagues, your friends, everybody. Success is something which is it multiplies. Happiness is also something which multiplies, doesn't divide. So I guess it starts from yourself. So we don't push. Please don't take it as a pushing thing, because with push comes stress. With stress comes back again the negative emotions. So take it easy.
Thank you for correcting me. I think, yes, I take back that word push. How should we be going about in making sure that we do not let the children experience anxiety and stress levels?
Yeah, so I repeat again, my answer is again the same. It begins from each one of us. Let's be happy first. Let's understand happiness, and then, put it on to the people whom we are collaborating with, or in our control. In a circle of concern, if they are there, and if they happen to be in contact with us, begin here. It goes there. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Anjali ma'am. Yatharji, would you like to comment on it?
I think parents need to use the opportunity they have today, because everyone's been so busy in their lives earlier before COVID that I used to see a lot of millennial parents and hardly giving time to their kids. It's unfortunate to say this, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. So that's something that I think it's God's way of telling people that use this time now. You've had almost more than a year. I think if they start communicating with children, educators obviously have to do what they have to do through the remote process right now, unfortunately. But we're always there. But if the parents also start taking the onus and collectively we work as a team, as a unit, I don't think it'll be a problem for children to handle anxiety or keep it at bay. I remember a quote from Parker J. Palmer. A good education teaches us to hold contradictions reflectively rather than reactively. So it's a habit of the heart that lies behind all social, cultural, and scientific breakthroughs. So that's what I like to say.
Yeah, I think that stress point of looking at the reflective angle of it is a very important thing. Thank you for putting that on the table. Can I now request Seema ma'am?
I absolutely agree. I think Anjali ma'am, with her, she said, focus on yourself, focus on your own happiness. And if you have happiness, it is contagious, you will spread it. And whoever comes in contact with you will certainly feel the benefits, will also become happier, will also be de-stressed. So just the focus, on de-stressing, on empathy, on kindness, on love. I think it's a huge part, and the pandemic is teaching us, how people are coming forth. I think more than the government, or along with the government, the NGOs and individuals who have stepped forth and provided succor, not only to family and friends, but also to total strangers. And it's a huge, huge source of satisfaction. It's a huge source of happiness, personal happiness. They say happiness is in giving rather than in receiving. And people are living that. And that is how, we are all spreading happiness. We are all spreading peace rather than stress. Although the pandemic may be causing stress, but if we help each other, if we support each other, then automatically we spread peace, happiness, amongst each other. So I think it's important, along with, yes, the news has to talk about the numbers, the statistics, and the sad state of affairs. But at the same time, if they could also talk about, what good is happening, how, like I said, people are coming forth, to help, not only with money, but also with their time and with their kind gestures. So many people are helping each other. So those stories tend to reinforce that along with the pandemic, there is also a lot of support, which is physical and emotional. And that brings a lot of confidence amongst people. whether, no matter what strata, they could be students, children, they could be teachers, parents, everybody as human beings, we are all touched by it. So these happy stories would help us to spread happiness, spread peace, and, make us all become happier and spread happiness.
Yeah. Thank you, Siba ma'am. I think that made a lot of sense, looking at happiness and all. So Rahul, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I think now you can take over.
Yes.
I think Rahul is the happiest person around, looks like.
Yes. the broader the smile that he has.
Exactly. It's directly proportionate to the smile that he's showing. He's relieved that this entire thing is over right now.
Thank you so much to all the eminent speakers. That was a fantastic deliberation. I think, yes, Chandan sir.
For a formal ending, Harish, would you like to pick some of the questions in the chat box?
So actually, I saw those questions and I realized that many of them are.
Oh, sorry, my net was unstable. I was just trying to say if Harisha would like to pick some of the questions from the chat box.
So I would just like to, because some of these questions are more of question as well as answer together. Because there is a person who is trying to say that as a graphologist, stress, anxiety, low self-esteem, depression, grudge against parents, these all are negative emotions, can be addressed and cured by merely helping the children to understand their own handwriting and all. I think that itself in itself is an answer, but yes, of course, schools or a teacher's intervention in this whole process might help. There's another question which is there. There are a lot of options of remedies for children, anxieties and depressions. As a report, 3 times depression increased in student due to online classes. Then this person is saying that we should tell the parents what are the best methods or options to reduce depression after end of pandemic phase and after the end of the lockdown. So because of course we were talking all the way about how to reduce the stress and anxiety level in the children. I think it will definitely help. And in case any of the panelists would like to give more comments on them, please go ahead.
Can I respond?
Yes, please.
I just like to tell the gentleman or the lady who's there who's asked this question is that I think merely considering it as stress and my child is stressed and there is a lot of this tension in the air, you are adding to it. Whoever the person is, you are adding to it. Rather than asking others the question, how do you relieve it? You know exactly the answer, but you're not exercising the answer. You're not exercising the solution. And the solution is in your hands as a mother or the father or a relative. It's in your hands. Don't expect schools to be having magic wands, which they'll do abracadabra, and bingo, your child will become okay or you'll become okay. Everything is in your hands, madam or gentleman, whoever you are. And if you're going to use it so strongly that you're putting it in sentences, trust me, stress will come. Not only to the child, but it'll come even to you and to your family because you're expressing stress. There's no stress. Trust me, if you say there is nothing, everything is very normal, then there is going to be normal.
Yes, exactly. This reminds me of a situation where I remember when my kids were young and I used to take them to a pediatrician. One day I actually had gone there for some stomachache of my son, and that time the pediatrician, what he did was he touched upon the various body parts of the child, and I tried telling him that my son has been complaining about stomach pain. He told me, please don't say anything. Let me touch, and I'm not going to ask him where the pain is, where the pain, and all those things are there. So he just kept on touching the child in the stomach, and if there is a pain, the child would say. If you say, is there a pain in the stomach? The child would say, yes, there is. Do you have a headache? The child will say, yes, I have. So therefore, the important thing is that we should not try to give words to the children. Therefore, it's important what you are stating just now. So Rahul, to you.
Yes. Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. That was a
Yes.
wonderful deliberation, actually, and quite an insightful one. Thank you to Anjali ma'am, Seema ma'am, Yatharth sir, and Harish sir. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to hand over the screen to Chandan sir. He's the VP of InnoSir Group to deliver the thank you note. Chandan sir.
So connectivity has
Thanks,
been
Rahul. I can very well, from your smile, I can very well see that the event has been successful.
Yes, it was an absolute success. Yes.
Is this a connectivity failure? Maybe, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible. Yes.
Yes. Great. Thank you, sir. Harisha, it has been a wonderful moderation by you.
Thank you.
Wonderful moderation. In fact, I've been meeting you after such a long time. Maybe I can recall, maybe after 3 years, I'm just seeing you in this virtual forum. I came to meet you at your campus. I am really missing those days a lot. With Anjali ma'am, maybe I have met her in the event with the government of Telangana. Maybe Anjali ma'am would be remembering. There was a
I remember now.
There was
Thank
a
you.
school session which was at the ground floor and the higher education was at the front floor.
That's true.
Yes. So great, ma'am. We are just missing those days. And in fact, coming back to the sessions again, Harisha, it lies a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of a moderator to help bring the best out of the panel like this. So great leaders and experts from the education industry. And you did a good role in getting the best outcomes from our eminent speakers of the day. Thank you so much, Seema ma'am, for letting your precious time for this event. Thank you so much, Anjali ma'am, Yathaji. It was a pleasure having you in this forum over here.
It was a
Thank you so
pleasure
much,
to be a
Anirudh
part
Gupta
of
sir,
this
because
group.
of some time maybe he has to leave. But and same here, ma'am. I would like to thank Rahul Benoy. It will be unfair if I will not take some of the names of my team over here. Rahul Benoy and Rupal Verma, because of your support, you help us organize this successful event, helping us meet in this virtual environment in much needed time is it's very essential. You are helping us, coming out from our daily schedule, and in our daily schedule, what are the talks which we keep on happening. What are we talking with our relatives? What are we talking with our friends? It's only one topic we are sharing with them. So this kind of forum help us come out from our regular schedule, daily schedule, and talk something positive and talk something productive. And non-teaching staff is doing. We are actually, holding the flag, and we are the flag bearers to boost them up. We have to boost ourselves, and with our efforts, we have to boost them up. Tell them that the situations are going to become normal. That is what we can do at the best. Because the kind of sectors which we are into, preschools and schools, this is very young sector and very energetic sector. And I'm sure the kind of the leaders which will be created from this era would be setting examples. But they have seen the phases which we have not seen earlier. So examinations are not happening, examinations are getting postponed, so much of pressure on them. So the kind of leaders we watching now. To all the audience, panels today, you shared your best practices, coming up with a different thoughts, different ideas, and a strong belief. And leaders like you you're standing strong and with some innovative solutions and ideas to address the situation. This is a time of collaboration, communication, and engagement.
I think some bandwidth issue there.
Yes, I think there's some bandwidth issues. And Anvita, are you there? You may want to try turning off your video. I think that will help. You can turn off your
for
video,
the
sir. I
daily,
think that will help.
fighting that. I'm just fighting the technology, maybe.
I think the technology on Chandraji's side is best.
Just to conclude that, I would like to thank all our audience that
Chandan sir, your voice is
I'm
breaking a
fighting
lot.
with the technology. Along with pandemic, I'm also fighting with technology over here. So
that is the power of technology. See, don't underestimate that.
Oh, I think he has
I
dropped.
think it was a
Yes.
good session. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes, actually,
Thank you. Thank you. It
before
was a
concluding, I
wonderful.
just want to say this: like we are coming up with India's Inspiring Teachers Awards on 29th and 30th of June, and we are felicitating top 50 teachers from across higher education and school education sector. Second team, I'd request you to show the creative. Yes. This is to felicitate and honor the exemplary works done by our teachers on day-to-day basis that goes unnoticed because everyone knows the directors, the school leaders, the CEOs, and no one recognizes teachers that often, like for their contributions they do in their daily, daily job. Yes. So we are felicitating top 50 teachers, both in higher education and school education leaders. The nomination link is there in the chat box. If anyone would feels like they have done some exemplary work and they deserve an award, they can nominate themselves, and the jury members and the organizing committee will sit on that nomination, the list of nominations, to choose the winners, which will be declared on 29th and 30th of June. Thank you so much once again. Please stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Thank
Rahul,
you.
the bottom line is from me. Please maintain your smile. You got $1 million smile.
Definitely,
And make sure
definitely.
that is a good example to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
everybody.
much,
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Be safe. Take care.